Well, I started a little bit early. I'm gonna turn this off. Be right back, guys. It's always something I forget. You know how it goes. Oh. With that said, I am so happy to be back in the saddle for a little bit. It's kind of a spur of the moment, you know, spur of the moment show, but I've got my Wawa, I've got my whiskey, of course, I've got my pipette, trusty, and my Glencairns, and I think that's all I really need. And it's been a long time, guys, since I've been doing a show. I can't remember last time I did one. Music, work, Parks in the Air. If you're not familiar with Parks in the Air, look up parksintheair.com, poda.app also is our database we use to track all that. But basically, it's where you get out and do emergency communications from state, provincial, prefectures types parks for all over the world. We've got guys in Japan, Greece, Turkey, everywhere that do it. So it's a lot of fun on the side. That's what my focus mainly is, other than regular work job I'm still doing. I cannot wait to retire, but that's a whole nother story. But hope everybody's doing well. Shout out to my original, what I would call mentor, Aquavite, if he ever watches. The ABCDs of whiskey is really what I always kind of gravitate towards when I want to say I ever like really scrutinize or critique, but it's more of a, I try to enjoy it as much as anybody else does. I really get into it. As you can tell, anything I get into pretty heavily. Not a bad thing, not a great thing sometimes, but not a bad thing. At least I'm usually successful with whatever I try to get myself involved with. But with that said, we have been on a bit of a journey together. Hey, Juan Catina, good to see you, man. It's been a long time. Mr. Hawaii, I believe, if I remember correctly. It's going well, man. It's going okay. Just been the music. Been doing a lot of drums with Drumeo. If you know Drumeo, they got bought out by Missouri.com recently, but it's good because they offer not just drums, and they do vocals and keyboards and guitar, and they're even going to start a new bass line, I believe, where you can pretty much have access to everything. They usually have lifetime memberships every once a year, I've noticed. I'm not sure if they're still doing that anymore, but that's how I got involved with Drumeo originally, and playing a lot of music and just doing a lot of work on the side. But since I have been working so damn hard, I thought, you know what, it's time to have a little bit of a minor celebration of sorts. So usually I don't splurge at the old liquor store, but this time I went a little crazy, but it's okay. It's once in 5 years. If I go a little crazy, it's probably okay. But I missed you guys, and I'm so glad that you got a chance to stop by. How's Hawaii doing, man? Hopefully you're doing okay there. Sorry for the last minute thing. I didn't know if anybody was ever gonna be able to come or not, or show or whatever, but I was behind on so much stuff, and I had a couple good bottles, and I had a couple good pours from my old buddies that I used to be able to hang with. If you ever have been on distiller.com, Distillers, I believe it's ran by some people in Sweden originally. I think Michael or Mikhail was the original developer, and it's grown, and now they're charging for certain certain fees for certain aspects of the site that you might want to use. But most of it's still free, thankfully, and you can get a lot of information about that when there. A lot of us used to do a lot of reviews. Some of them still do. I need to do a couple. I'm going to go ahead and record the show and try to do a couple that I've been meaning to do for quite some time. 2 specific pours also we'll be looking at, and I usually don't get into this type of whiskey. They're going to be grains, but they're going to be high-aged grain whiskeys. If you're familiar with Port Dundas, would be one of them, and the other one is Canvas. We'll be taking a look at preliminary look at these, and I apologize to Scott E. and Generously Paul with the 2. Well, these 2 are actually Generously Paul's pours, and I need to get on the deal and get these done. So let's look at Port Dundas first, and then and afterward I also do have a new Glenmora 25 we'll be taking a look at, and that should be interesting, as well as a Glenglassaugh 30, which is something I was surprised to actually find. That's not something you usually see in the old field. Hey, pal. Oh, nice to see you, Loch Ness. It's been way too long, man. I've been okay. Been working too much and been doing the music hardcore for a while, building up. I still have equipment to build, which is really sad. I've been waiting for the Korg PA5X to get released since last year, and I've had it on, pre-order for a long time. Sweetwater keeps saying, "Oh, it's going to be, a few months." So then they moved it to a few months, and then last I heard it was going to be February, and then they told me it's going to be April. So I'm like, man, between that and writing and stuff, it's just been kind of a whirlwind. But it's all good. We're all in good shape. Everybody's happy, so that's all that matters. Hopefully, you guys are doing well too. Juan, how's Hawaii been for you, Loch Ness? I think you might be. God, it's been a while, man. I can't remember exactly where you are in the country. I believe you're in the U.S. I can't remember if you're Ohio, no, or if you're Midwest somewhere. But let me know. I forgot which area you're in. Have you guys drank anything lately that caught your fancy? I'm kind of curious about that too. But let me bring up this old pour that I was supposed to do for Generously Paul and Distiller a while back. I believe this is a 28-year-old Glen, a Clandini independent bottle, 50% ABV, natural color, non-chill filter, distilled 10 of 88. That's October 88. 5 of 17 bottles, cask DMG 11753. It's a refill hogshead, 1 of 249 bottles. That's pretty specific. The reason I waited so long to do this, though, was that, not only am I not a grain or blended guy, I'm not a blended grain guy at all, usually. It's not something that I typically would ever get for myself. Now, it's not to say I haven't had some really good grain pours, like an Invergordon 30-year-old. I remember PB Michigan Wolverine on distiller, Prene is his name. He, I believe, sent out, if I'm not mistaken, Invergordon at least a 30-year, and I was surprised of how, it was good, but for greens it's hard because it takes like a lot of many more years for me for it to be refined enough for me to enjoy, or to be, I don't know how to explain it, but the greens are really tough for me to get into, and I didn't want to not do it justice. So yeah, we're gonna do a review live basically and see how we go. And let's see if I can get in here now. Their site distiller is usually pretty good. It's been a little slow, but wow, this is back from 2019. I'm way behind. It's like 5 years ago. Oh lordy. Well, Prey didn't send his review until 2020, so I don't feel as bad. But it got really good reviews by these guys, surprisingly. I'm not gonna look at their notes or let it reflect. I just saw their scores. They were in a range. They weren't like all the same, thankfully. So whatever I get out of this should be interesting. We'll see. Hey, wow, there's a lot of you guys. Ontario, that's right. I'm sorry, man. But I knew it was kind of Midwest, but I wasn't sure if it was America or Canada. But good to see you either way, man. It's all good in Hawaii for one. Hey, Paul, good to see you, man. Paul M. Where you from? I forgot, Paul. And what are you drinking today, if anything? If you're not drinking, you should be, maybe, if it's not a weird time for you. But it is Saturday, right? So I don't see how anyone can't be ready to have a little sippy on Saturday. But I poured this out a while back. Like I said, this is a 28-year whiskey. So typically, depending on the age, I usually try to leave it out minute per age at a minimum if I can. So that's just me. I like to, a lot of the times, oxidation helps with a lot of that. This is 50% ABV, so it's not only got a great age statement, it's got a great bottling strength. It might, can always be higher, 60, 61, but 50% is pretty solid. Natural color, hey, no dye. That's perfect, and non-chill filtered. So that's the ABCDs, the Aquavite I always talked about, that I rather get into and respect. So it's an easier way, definitely, to get into the whiskey and really get something that's higher quality. That's for sure. Wow, holds. I'm not seeing any. It's funny. It formed like a droplet here, and it's just staying. Now it's finally ran down the side. So you can see it's going to be a higher ABV usually when I see that hold its form and then it does that really slow drop. And man, interesting color. It's not super dark for what you would think a 28-year-old whiskey would be, but it's not. It's certainly not. Doesn't have any coloring in it and doesn't have anything crazy. I do have a little light back here. I'm not overly glaring the light though to try to not glare myself in the eyes too. Oh, okay. And I apologize. Montreal. Got to turn my French brain on a little bit here. Salut, mon ami, and merci beaucoup for coming. I forgot how do you say for coming, and adieu and abiento. I appreciate it either way. Drinking water and tea at work. Yeah, if you're at work, please don't be partaking. But hopefully tonight you can, if you don't get a chance to watch later and have a dram or two with me possibly. But oh man, okay, I do like the nose off the bat on this Port Dundas. It does have, and the grains usually give me that sawdust kind of fresh cut wood, even if it's an older whiskey. I guess I'm picking up on the overly woody notes in it, but it definitely has that. But it's got a little bit of a funk, which is kind of a nice funk, not a bad funk, just kind of like what you would get from an aged antique shop, kind of, which is what you would expect in a 28-year-old whiskey. We're knocking on the door at 30 years, so. There's a little bit of pickling, but it's not heavy, thankfully. It kind of reminds me of like a dill you would get off of rye, but it's extremely faint. It's not like anywhere in your face or anything like that. A lot of fruit, nicely, surprisingly too, on the grain. A lot of cherries. This one's got oranges too, a little citrus. Wow, not shabby on the nose at all. Still some really nice slow running legs there too. Huh. Let me see if I can get anything else off of some information on the bottle here. I don't have it with me, but yeah, 1988. That's the year that this was actually dealt. Does anyone ever had any Douglas McGibbon or Clendini bottles? I'm just curious. Never heard of them. I'm not sure if they only do grains. This is a single grain, not a blended one. So this interesting. Port Dundas. This is also, if I remember correctly, this is a dead distillery. You look at my. I try to keep track of all this stuff on a spreadsheet. So forgive me for not having that already up here, but I do have a way to see all the distilleries, thankfully, in one little go. And I'm collecting a bottle from each one. That's why I see so many back here. And I drink them. I don't sell them, resell them, none of that. These are mostly all empties back here, believe it or not. So that tells you something too. I think they're all empty except that Alta Vanya. That's a bottle that you don't usually see a distillery bottle for. There's a reason for that. So anyway, let's go back down here. Port Dundas is it in here at all? I usually just do the Scotch, the malt, single malt. I usually don't do grains, and that's why I don't have a lot of information. But I can't remember. They might be one of those distilleries that's no longer, but some of these are still around. Like Canvas, that might be another one that's gone. But some of those grains, like there's North British, there's Cambridge, there's a lot of active still, few here and there grain distilleries. But anyway, I'm not saying this is going to be anything like a Brora Rosebank or oh man, who else is out there? Brora Rosebank, Port Ellen. No, we're not talking that, but. Not getting I'm getting more fruits than florals, and that's surprising. Usually on these grains, I would probably get more of the floral notes, but the fruits in your face on this for me, but not as much on the floral side. A little bit, maybe some honeysuckle, your typical, Huh? I wonder if there's even if there's florals. It's kind of like going toward that marigold. Middle of the road, not like lavender or lilac, nothing that fragrant, more of like leaning towards more of almost a fruit like scent. Anyway, Cedar, maybe a little bit of some other woods going on. I'm not getting any sandalwood or nutmeg or anything like that. I'm not getting any spice per se, but maybe it'll get on the palate. But Slanchava, everybody. Thanks for stopping by and having a swig with me. Hopefully, wow, that is much better than I thought it was going to be. Wow. Okay, we're going neat, guys. Usually, for all the new people, I usually go ahead and eat first. And wow, that's a hell of a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Cheers to Generously Paul. I gotta send him a shout out. He'll probably be like, "Where the hell have you been for the past 5 years?" But that's a nice mouth coat. Pretty long finish too. Wow, we do have lots of fruit. I mean, the only bad. I'm not gonna say bad. The only thing that's definitely forward in your face in this is a lot of fruit. But man, it it goes into more of your apricots, your dried old school fruit on the palate. Because like I was talking about the oranges and the lemon and the other things on the nose, but this is more of like a apricot-y. Oh, almost like it has maybe a slight dry leathery note, but nothing funky like a Springbank or nothing like that. It's more of like a hmm, definitely mango and maybe like a melon, like a watermelon or something. Need again? Wow. I have to say this is a hell of a lot better than Evan Gordon ever thought of being. But that you better like apricots. I mean, thankfully, I don't like to eat them. I do like the taste in a whiskey that has that note. This is pretty intense on that. I'm trying to get them. Thankfully, it's not really overly oaky on the taste. Sometimes you get that on the taste, but yeah, not bad at all. There's my buddy. Everyone, good to see you, man. Yeah, it's been a long time. Just did a spur of the moment thing. We'll be doing some pours. Got 4 lined up today. I hope I'm not going to pay for it later. But to start out with this port Dundas, this is from Generously Paul. Was a sample. The lighting's a little weird, I know, but it's a so far, man. I am so happy that I saved it, and for a more special occasion, I guess you could say. And a hell of a lot better than most grains like North British I've had, Ever Gordon. Gonna do a canvas today. Haven't tried that yet, but yeah, so far, well, I do have more to pour. That's why we're gonna do a little water. See if we get anything else out of that before we go on to the next one. But wow, heavy on the fruits, citrus combination with mangoes, watermelons, honeydew. Wow, it's like that is an intense, nice whiskey. I don't know what he paid for it. I'll look in the notes here after I do my own little score, but wow. 28 years, I'm sure wasn't cheap, but at the same time, grains are kind of funny about price. They're not usually too bad until you get up toward the 30 years range, but we'll have to see more. Well, I'll dig into the notes here in a second, but wow. And that finishes, I'm not sure if I'd say super long, but it's definitely medium length. It's still going with that. But I was surprised at how fat those apricots are in your face on this. But if I'm gonna knock it for anything, it maybe needs a little bit more elements to, I don't know. Let's put a little water. That might help out on some of this stuff. You know how that goes. Thankfully, got my trusty dropper. When I do this, I usually just do literally 1 drop. I'm not doing teaspoons, spoons, none of that stuff. Because I want to control I don't want it to dilute the whiskey. So we're literally putting 1 drop in that dram to see, we'll give it a little bit here and see what we get. Hopefully you guys have something to sip. Yeah, this one is a Port Dundas, everyone. When I went to Indy last year, I had a 40-year-old Impex that was in the green whiskey that was amazing. It did a blind and was blown away when I was told it was a green. Yeah, this is this particular Clan Denny independent bottle, 28-year, 50% ABV, no chill filter, no color. This one is also, I think, a lot like what you're saying, where, excuse me, if I was doing this blind, I wouldn't know it's a grain, first off. There's no way. I would suspect it's a very old, solid space side whiskey is what this reminds me of, which is no joke. Space sides are usually on your sweeter, fruitier sides. They're usually, more intense than your Highlands. It's definitely more intense than your Lowlands, but just it's not always the rule. Like, not all Isla whiskeys are peated, of course, and not all Campbelltown whiskeys have a lot of funk in them. It's the same kind of thing where, yeah, there's classifications of some of this stuff, but you got to be careful of lumping everybody into the same thing. So this definitely, I think, is one of those moments where it's like, wow, you got to be careful to say, I'll never like a green whiskey, even if you've had 20 of them and only had one or two good ones, because sometimes you run into the gyms where you're just like, wow, this is not like a green. Okay. The water intensified the sugary sweetness on the nose, brought out more of the bourbon-esque kind of qualities when you got your light. I'd say this one's a light brown sugar, not a dark or even a medium. Definitely light brown sugar, confection, like powdered sugar thing going on. Hmm. Tamed it a bit on the fruit though, but I'm not going to complain. No bitching yet, right? Spicier. The water intensified a spice level on the on the palate in a good way. It reminds me of a nutmeg meets something else really sweet. Not dark like a licorice, but like it's got a bit of like a Chinese five spice, maybe star anise, but without the licorice part. I'm trying to think how to explain that. Yeah, because anise is more of like your licorice type of, has that kind of funky note in it. This is more of like a straight off good mid-level spice thing. I would think I would get from a nutmeg type of deal here. Solid all around. Solid all around, definitely. Most green whiskeys are from Colin Stills, no. My guess is they rarely put green in good cast since it is used for filler, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I think you might be right. Honestly, everyone, I am the least qualified to really speak about anything about green whiskey, other than the fact that I know I don't like a lot of them. Uh, as far as the process is concerned, I'm not as familiar, but that makes sense from what I've heard. I think you're right, but don't want to say that 100% and let someone else knows more about the green. But really pleasantly surprised. Let's take a look after. I'm going to go ahead and say I think this is really good. Is it a 5-star blow me away killer? No, but is it like a 3-star run of the mill average whiskey? Not even close either. I would put this right at a solid 4. I'm thinking a solid 4 because it changed the way I feel about grains. Not so much about the age of grains. It does have to be tend to be higher, 25 minimum, but because it's being a 28. But not all grains are built the same way. Definitely after having this, and I'm pleasantly surprised. So let's see. Let me read you a little bit of. And if you want to follow along, you can go to distiller.com and pull up the Port Dundas 1988 28-year clan Denny Douglas McGibbon single grain Lowlands Scotland. Okay, so this is not only is it a grain, it's a Lowlands distillery. Interesting. This does not have a lone Scotch taste to it. This does not remind me of anything that have to do with Auchentoshan or any of that stuff. So let's see what old Prene's saying. He's always thankful to Paul. His demise was a bit different than others like Bora, etc., because they moved away from singles to blends. This one shut down rather recently in 2011 from strictly a business decision. Diageo decided to concentrate its grain whiskey investment into Cambridge and not Port Dundas. Diageo leveraged Cambridge for blends, gins, Tanqueray, vodka like Smirnoff, etc. And for the tasting, I'm getting a very green industrial aroma for him. But for me, the palate is where it shines. You got to let this one sit out a bit, a few drops of water, flavors open up, tropical fruit plate. So I was right on him with the tropical. I got more of a mangoey, but he got like a pineapple coconut deal going on. It does kind of have that. If you took the Balvenie Caribbean cast without the rum part, I guess I don't know. If there's coconut It's really subtle, but if you did put that on steroids, this was what this whiskey is a lot like. So if you like the Caribbean Cask Balvenie 14, and you ever run into this sucker, I would definitely consider it pretty high buy. He gave this one a 3.75, but he said that the nose was disappointing. But the palate was a 4.5 to 4.75 for him. So when he averaged it, he gave it a 3.75, which a little bit under my 4, but not too far away. Lee Evolved, who's my buddy from Virginia, haven't talked to the guy in a while. Sadly, I know he dealt with about a COVID there, and might even had some long haul stuff going on. I'm hoping he's out of the woods. I did check up on him because I think he had to go see the doctor kind of level, and I think he's okay. He did send something, I think, in 2021-ish. It's been a couple of years since anyone's heard from him. Hopefully he's doing all right. Mr. Lee, if you're around, you got to give us a thumbs up some point. We also call him Aquaman because he loves his water. He'll never put a drop of whiskey, water in whiskey. It's sad, but I think we're trying to get him to come around to maybe just adding a one little drop. It does make a big difference sometimes. But he gave it a 4.25. He gave it like one little notch higher than I did. Basically, he's like, the nose well is nothing short of spectacular. Juicy pineapple, toffee, sugar cane. So he got a lot out of the nose. He appreciated a lot more than Pranny did. I liked it, but I do appreciate the palate a hell of a lot more. And Paul himself gave it a 4.25 as well. So they both gave it one notch above me, and Pranny gave it one notch below me. So I'm kind of like at a 4. I'm kind of like in the middle, it looks like, which is not a bad place to be. A word of advice to my SDT sounds bad because it almost sounds like STD, but a word of advice to my SDT cohorts, Lee Evolve, Wolverine, Scott, Ian, Telex, that's me. Like a well-aged single malt, the single grain needs time in the glass to compose itself before it's ready for a big show. Would you expect Mike Tyson to roll out of bed, throw some gloves on, go toe-to-toe with Evander Holyfield? No, he needs to warm up first. These guys are the best writers, I swear. So if you ever get a chance, you should go check him out on Distiller sometime. I haven't done any reviews in a while. I'm going to put a couple new ones up here, but these guys always do a hell of a job with the descriptions, and even though it's all text and they're not using video, with the words, you definitely get a visual imagery of what you're dealing with here, and they don't hold back either. They don't sugarcoat it, but they'll definitely give praise where it's due, and they'll give I won't say unpraised, but not so good praise where it's due too. But anyway, man, 4.25. He seems like it was a complete steal. He got it on auction for $85. That MF. He got this bottle for $85 on auction. Now, if you're asking me, tell us, is this port done this 28-year from Glen Denny independent bottle, 50% natural color, non-chill filter, worth $85? I'd say it's worth $385, easy. Maybe even I'd probably go $2 to $385. I'm surprised at how cheap this he got it for, because it is quite a steal, and I'm glad that I only used a little bit. I actually got. Look at all I got left in the sample. Look at that. So it also pays to conserve your samples. I just got 2 pours out of that, even though they're like little small ones. Anyway, let's move on. I'm excited. This is fun. All right, let's look. Where did I put that damn canvas? I've got so many pours out here. Oh, here we go. Let's I will write that up generously, Paul, if you're checking this out later. And I'll write and post that. So let's go to the canvas. That's the next one we're gonna look at and see. Both from the same guy, generously Paul, hopefully the same caliber, if I'm lucky. Canvas? C-A-M, yeah, C-A-M-B-U-S, canvas. And this one is going to be the 25-year Whiskey Broker as the independent bottler, 56.9, so we're a little bit higher on ABV. Also natural color and also no chill filtration. This is filled on 8/8/91, so we're talking August the 8th, 1991. Bottled in August the 3rd, 2017. Sherry butt number is 62929, and it's bottle 88 of 555. So pretty particular, but hey, this is fun because we're going to find out if Telex likes yet another grain. This one's a little younger too, 25 years. Now, typically I would say it has to be at least 30 years for me to like it. Well, the 28 fooled me, so maybe this 25 will be a little bit better. I wonder if he got a deal like he did on the other one. If we're lucky, that would be a good deal. Here, let's see. Let me look it up. This next one. Canvas. There's probably not a whole bunch of canvas reviews on here either, I would think. Well, there's a 40-year. That's surprising. Here's the whiskey broker one. I'm not going to look at their notes. I'm just going to pull it up so I've got some good ideas of. Here we go. Oh, someone else reviewed it too besides us. Usually it doesn't happen because these bottles are so particular, but I'm glad that this one is. This one has another extra review to go along with the other three that I knew was going to be here. Anyway, let's look up the details here. Single grain, also Lowlands, Scotland. So Canvas is also a grain. This is a single grain from Lowlands, but man, that other Lowlands was no joke. So hopefully, let's do a little cleanse of the palate here. A little water. Let's see if we can get some more. Hey, it's another buddy that's been a while. Good to see you, Donner. What you drinking today, if anything? Hopefully, you're able to partake in a little sippy. We did a Port Dundas a little bit ago. Excellent, 4 out of 5. 28 years is hard to really go wrong, but this is that Canvas 25. So let's get in to it. Similar, holding its shape really well. A runner or two, but nothing fast or anything. Color is natural, and for 25 years, that is not bad for a grain at all. That's about the same as that other one, even though the other one had a few years extra on it. This is definitely not as fruity of a nose as that other one was. I just poured it though, so let's. I had that one poured out. Never mind. I had that one poured out for quite a while, so this one should be aired out good. This one is definitely more on the funky medicinal kind of side. Not like a Lefroy medicinal, TCP iodine thing. Not like that. This is more of a. The funk in this is more of like a springbanky funk, but not like the burgundy wine kind of cast thing. More of a. I guess there's a leather note on this one that's more intense, surprisingly, even though it's younger than the other one is. This one's got. It still has that real slight pickling. It's not like a dill, like I said earlier, but it's a little slight pickling. But there is this more earthier note going on, and I'm that close to saying like a chocolatey note, but it's more of like a. More not as dark as cocoa, but it's more of like a lighter deal. But this one's a bit. I don't know if I want to say I like the nose on this at all. It has me kind of dancing the tightrope of being like, it's not really for me. Might be some slight caramel that's trying to balance it out. It needs more sweetness to me on the nose to balance the bitter, sour, definitely bitter, sour notes that you get from the nose. Ugh, okay, well, I'm not so. I was eager to taste that last Port Dundas. This one I'm not as eager to taste, but it's a sherry butt, so it's got to have some, sherry qualities in this. For God's sakes. I think the fruit might be coming out a little bit, or some of that. This one maybe has a little brown sugar before the water rather than that other one I just did, but it's not well balanced yet on the nose. That's my complaint right now. But let's see on the palate if it's better. I'm hoping to God it is. If it's not, hey, this is part of the fun that we have to go through to get what we want. We're going to neat. This one is 56.9% ABV. Ooh. Okay. The palate was better than I thought it was going to be, thank God. But oh, okay, wow, okay, that finish is really good. That's weird. This is a weird whiskey. Cannabis, yes. Had a 29-year, 10-month-old cannabis years ago that was distilled in September of '88. Yeah, this one's 91. The other one I did was '88, though. It was right before this one, um, which was when I went with my wife. Awesome. Used most of it to make my own blended scotches with a variety of other malts. That's a really good idea. That's one thing I didn't really think about is if you've done your own blending for quite a while and you found yourself to be, I'm not saying you're blending for other people, but you're blending for yourself and you're blending at a consistently good level for yourself. I would definitely not be opposed to always having a bottle or two of a high aged grain whiskey to do for this. But you have to be careful because to get a nice high aged whiskey, it's not cheap, and you don't want to screw this up when it comes to doing your own blends. You don't, unless you're using really small parts, you're not going to get many uh, occasions to fix your screw ups. So keep that in mind. That's awesome, though. I'm surprised that the taste is much better than I thought. Let's have another sippy here. Going back for a nose neat just to see if it. Sometimes that helps if you have do the palate. Go back to the nose before you add water. Helps a lot when you're getting the weeds. Now the nose is getting better. Now I'm starting to get more of the fruits and stuff in there that I was getting from the other one, but not as intense, not as in your face on the nose at all. It's funny, those other guys didn't like the nose on that Port Dennis. I'm gonna love to see what they think of the nose on this one, because I'm like, this is one's not as good nose wise, but palate wise, it's interesting. Okay. The weird thing is brown sugar is on a medium level in this one compared to the other one was a light. Nice spice level. Not black pepper, but some sort of maybe that's that nutmeg again. It's got a nice spice. Not peppery like a black pepper or white pepper. Maybe it's got a little white pepper in it. White pepper with maybe a little bit of the It's got a real. Everything is more subtle about this, and I'm surprised that the 3 years would make such a big difference on the power of the taste, especially when the other one was 50% ABV, and this one is 56%, 56.9 to be exact. So 57%, 7% more ABV. It's not giving me a punch like I usually get with flavor and that kind of thing. I used 8-ounce sample bottles to make the small blends. Good, smart way to do it, because if you have any issues, you don't have to. If you do, like some of these guys do full-fledged Solera bottles or Infinity bottles, whatever you want to call it, and some of them do like mid-level bottles, like they'll do like a half. But if you're doing like really like kind of, I've even got some 5 or 6-ounce sample bottles in there. I might even try to dig up, but that's not the right one. We're on this one. Thank God I didn't sip that one, because that would have been a complete snafu reversal in what I'm having now, because that other one's an actual single malt scotch we'll get into in a second. This one, wow. I gotta pour a little more and put a little water after this. The initial palate is still really good with this. A lot better than the nose, but I'm trying to see if I like that finish as much as that last one. I don't think I do. It's there, but it's more of a nougat, vanilla. It's missing chocolate. It's missing something else darker to balance it out. It's nice. It's light. It's a waxy kind of a medium finish, but it's not. It's more on the shorter end to me on this one. So let's have a little bit more of this one, and we'll do a little bit more water to see if we didn't do any water yet. We'll do a drop just to see. on this guy. What are you guys drinking, if anything? Hopefully, somebody's able to have a little whiskey with me today. It is Saturday, for God's sakes. I know some of you guys work on Saturday. Hopefully, my buddies from Norway will be on. This is a little earlier, so it's kind of prime time for them. So maybe they'll be able to stop by and say hi. And if you guys do, Veldebra, tak, tusen tak. Really, really appreciative of you guys starting your evening off with Telex having a little fun. Slashiva, everybody, on this one. It's got that funk on that nose, man. I'm not I'm not into that nose. I definitely let that poor. Even though those other guys were bitching about the nose, at least the notes you got were good. And this one, I'm getting more in my face, but it's not what I want. But I'm not. I am clarifying. I'm not a green guy, so don't say that Telex doesn't like it because it's bad quality. It could be great quality. I'm just saying it's not my wheelhouse. I'm not the Huckleberry for this drink, but I will tell you what I enjoy and what I don't. Yeah, this one's got even more of that fresh saw cut. Right on the plane. You just cut a big fat thing of wood, sawdust. It even has a pledge, almost like a pledgy thing going on. But that's not my for me. But let's go back to the with water. Even that's the same thing on the nose. But let's see if the palate changes at all. Sometimes we get lucky. The water. Dare I say it canceled some of the stuff out, but it's definitely rose. It was already a medium brown sugar level, and now it even came up a little bit. It's not dark brown sugar, but it's middle. It's not a bad taste. It's just versus that Port Dundas, this one doesn't do it for me in the same way. And I'm sure generously Paul probably feel the same way. We'll see. I'm not gonna put words in his mouth until I read his deal, but the other one I gave a 4. This is good. It's not bad. Not to the same level. I do love that spice kick on this one is better than the other one, but that's the only thing I like about this one compared to the other one better is that it does have this nice white pepper meets this effervescence, this sprightly, almost like it's what you would get from like a local barley, believe it or not. It does have that going for it, but finish is not near as long as that Port Dundas was to me. And but it's pleasant. I'm gonna give this one a 3.75. I think it's worthy. I think it's not a bad deal. I'm not gonna, myself go out and get something that's under a 4. But would I steer anybody that likes grain whiskey away from it? No, I think it's definitely, if I like it as a single malt guy, I don't see how a single grain guy is not gonna like this one. So let's see what old Paul says. Now, like I said, this other guy, it looks like Bartosz Kamiński. I'm guessing maybe Polish. That's just a guess. I'm not really good all the time with Eastern European names, but you gave it a 4 out of 5. That's right above my 3.75. So Prane gave it a 3.75 as well, like I did. He's like, in my opinion, single grain whiskeys are usually rough and brazen under 25 to 30 years, which I mentioned before, unless they're blended like Compass Box or finished. And he's got a point there. Compass Box knows how to treat grain whiskeys, hedonism, things like that. This one here plays to that general hypothesis. Nose is definitely sherried, some dried fruits and hazelnuts. He got a lot more off the nose than I did for some reason. I was digging. I mean, I got the dried fruit, but I did not get the hazelnut like he did. Taste is thinner than a single malt naturally. Lighter mouthfeel, but that's actually a positive in the summer scorching 100 degrees weather where he is. And this is up in Michigan too, I guess, unless he's on travel. He travels a lot, so he's probably in Asia or something. Anyway, typical sherry, dark fruits, marzipan, and a light heat in the finish. Yeah, he got a lot more of that hazelnut marzipan thing. I wish I got that off of that. Let me go back and see if I can. I think that's where I remember how I was referring to things as like apricot. I think it's the dried fruits I'm getting more in my face, but I do detect what he's getting, but man, is it really, really light. Leovov gave it a 4 out of 5. He was a little bit higher than Prane and I. He said that the palate was more forgiving with an overall sweet profile, sherry, grapes, red berries, and some tropical flavors through the heat and grainy aspects. There's some depth there, especially with a splash of water. Roasted nuts, malty goodness helped calm the lasting negative effects of the cast strength ABV. It felt oily and stuck in the crevices of the mouth, even as if it let a slight burn in some places. He's definitely on board too. It sounds like even more so. Most grain whiskey is one dimensional, he says, sometimes even after a long rest. But this cast must have had some serious magic in it. He really liked this one. I guess getting the more cereal notes with more of the sherry. I wasn't able to get the sherry, I guess, as much out of this one as Lee. And generously, Paul, the guy that actually did the sample, he also gave it a 3.75. So I'm on par with him and Prane, it looks like, at least. Nose needs plenty of time to settle down, which I was good about, giving at least 25 minutes. If you go in too quickly after pour, you get harsh, acetone and vinegar-like harshness, which I was still getting some of that, but it definitely wasn't in your face. But after enough time composed itself, 10 to 15 minutes, there's grain alcohol, not as harsh as some, but lots of honey and lemon zest. He was able to get the honeysuckle, vanilla. He got some coconut out of this and honey nut Cheerios, which is kind of funny. These guys really picked up on that nuttiness. I wonder if I'm getting blocked out by something. Maybe the fruit is so much in my face with that sweetness, it was just combating with the nutty profile these guys were getting from it. Because I mean, the marzipan I could detect at a like that real slight, subtle almondy kind of flavor, but honey nut Cheerios I love, and I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it's really subtle. These guys were really good about getting really subtle notes. Mm. I see where they're coming from. At least it's not far fetched by any means. Two excellent pours, Paul. I can't say enough about both of them. Even though I'm not a grain guy, I wouldn't have turned away from either one. And so I'd really, I guess I should challenge anybody out there to find me a green whiskey that I would like, the single grain that is younger than 25 years. If you can find that, I would be interested to see what it is, because I'm not against greens per se. I just never really got blown away by one, and never thought that it would be affordable to find a good one that I would like without spending crazy money for, like a 25, 30-year whiskey. Let's see if he says what he paid for this one. I'm just kind of curious. Oh, it was nice to try another ghosted distillery. This is another dead one. And a quarter-century year old Scotch for under $100. Wow. He is so damn good at finding these deals. So damn good. It's so crazy. I don't know how he does it. He won that also for a $98 deal right underneath $100 from Whiskey Brokers Independent Bottling that released that one. Wow. Okay. Huh. Goes to show, if you have the money and have the time to, and you're feeling kind of adventurous, I would definitely maybe take a chance at maybe an auction if you can get it underneath 100 for an old grain. If it's at least 25 years, I don't think you have a lot to lose, because at least you could say, even if it's not exactly what you're looking for, hey, I tasted a 25, 30-year-old, single grain Scotch whiskey. And not a lot of people can really say that I know of. So that is something to speak about. So anyway, I'm definitely going to put these back on the shelf. I saved half of it so I can actually enjoy it later. So we'll put these in the old glasses, Glencairns, out of the way so we don't mix those up with anything. And we're going to go next to the Glenmoray, and Moray. Some people probably say Moray, but if you're being technical, Glenmoray is what you want to call it. The Y is silent, put it that way. Anyway, Glenmoray is one of those distilleries that I've had a lot of experience with on one hand, but have I found a lot of stuff that I like? Sadly not. But it's a very, very, very cost-effective distillery to get into. Like, if someone was a sorry about the mess here. If someone was a getting into Scotch kind of guy, like they already like bourbon to a point, and they just want to get their hands into Scotch, Glenmora is probably actually not a bad place to start financially wise because you can get some nice higher end bottles for a lot cheaper than you know. I'm not saying that the quality is the same all the time, but sometimes the quality is pretty good with Glenmore. I'm not big on their straight up bourbon stuff, to be honest with you. But I'm not really more of a straight up bourbon guy anyway. I like a lot of the sherries, peats, combined sherry peated whiskey is my probably my preferred next to just a sherry, but just a peated whiskey I can get into if it's well done enough. Anyway, with the Glenmorangies though, I have found that I have liked their sherried whiskeys. Maybe not as much as their bourbon ones, but they have a 15-year-old, I believe, if I remember correctly, that was a sherry that uh, is it as good as other 15-year-old sherries? Maybe not, but I'm not gonna have it fight against the Glendronach or anything like that. But the cost is like half the price, so keep that in mind. You you do get what you pay for when it comes to some distilleries like Glendronach and McKellen and stuff on one hand, but is it overpriced to the point where you almost want to take a gamble on some of these other distilleries where the cost isn't as high, but you still get a great year, you still get a great ABV maybe, and we'll get into that in a second. And you might still get no coloring, which is you don't want any dye and any E150A bullshit in there. And then you might get that no chill filtration if you're lucky. But let's take a closer look at one that I usually don't get really into because of that. But I have, like I said, I have had a couple good ones like their 15-year-old sherry. So this one, Petite Cellars, is who I usually deal with in Ellicott City. They have had this for quite a while, and it was right around 300, like right underneath. And most people, yeah, they're like, that's a whole lot of money for a whiskey. The reason why this one stood out enough for me to want to even do a show on it was it's not your typical Glenmora, and I've had not only the 15, I've had the 18 as well as I'm trying to think if I've ever had any other older ones besides 21, the 15. But when I saw this 25, I sat on it for quite a while, and then I thought I did see some reviews where they were like, it might not be your wheelhouse, but for the cost, if you can get it around 300 or less, it's actually worth getting. So I thought, F it, let's pull the trigger and get that sucker. So I went ahead and got and picked it up, and it's pretty nice actually. It came in there a lot of their other stuff comes in like your normal boxes. This one actually came in a wood deal, and it had a pull out where you pull the wood, and it had this some sort of scroll or something in there. I mean, I'm not really one for presentation on whiskeys because I just want to drink it and enjoy it. But for what you're spending, they didn't like completely cheap out. Thank God on that. So that's a good. I appreciate that. So this is the all their stuff usually has this Elgin Reserve. If you see that, that's just kind of like part of their deal. This particular offering is a port cast finish, which I thought was interesting because I don't think I've ever tried a Glenmora port other than to have a really low end, I think an NAS even type of entry, which, but now when you're talking 25-year-old Scotch, that's a whole other story typically. But Glenmora and I have not had the best relationship, so it's kind of one of those. It's kind of like you have a relative. You like the relative, but you don't really know a whole lot about them. You don't want to send them away, but you don't want to. You know what I'm trying to say? This is what this kind of is like for me because I was kind of like, oh man, do I really want to go in deep? But as you can tell, it's been a voyage to try to get the highest best year or offering that I can get from each distillery on the distillery bottle level. And then we're going to start getting into independence soon, and that's going to be my next focus. Uh, on, I guess if you consider it a series. I don't really do series anymore because I've kind of been dabbling and testing the waters on all sorts of different ideas I had over the years, and none of them really took off really. But I figure, hey, maybe it's time to get more into the independents and seeing what we can go. I'm already a big El Delphi fan of the independent bottlers of theirs, so another one's like Signatory, so we'll see what we can get into, but it's gonna be some fun. Anyway, so I went ahead and got this sucker. This is the Glenmora, and this is one that if you do find it for 3 or under, I would suggest maybe picking it up, and I'll tell you more about it in a second. Let's see. Let's look at the 25-year age statement. That's a good thing. Now, the only thing that would make most people worry, I don't want to say worry, but a lot of us that do tend to really, really enjoy the cast strength whiskey, if it's not, 48% minimum, we kind of get a little nervous. I'm like that. 46 is usually my cutoff, where if it's under 46, I probably won't even consider it, to be honest with you. And I'm hoping more people get to that stage where they're like, I don't really have to have cast strength all the time, but the 40 to 43% whiskey is kind of really frustrating. So sometimes you get lucky with the Dalmore's got that King Alexander that is only 40%. And it's the casks are interestingly enough to make it worth your while to an extent for flavor. But if you like a little oomph, a little power in your whiskey, you're never going to get that no matter how great it tastes. So when you're dealing with some of the high-end Dalmores and even Macallan, I guess Macallan's probably better about ABV, but some of those you got to walk that tightrope teetering, line. So keep that in mind too. This one's 43. Now I'm like, at least it's not 40, right? But I would love to see this in a 46 to 48% ABV. With that said, let's talk about coloring and chill filtration. Now, you would pray that on a whiskey at 25 years, and especially if you're going to charge over 250-ish for it, you're not going to put anything extra in it because you really shouldn't need anything extra to sell your whiskey if it tastes good and has a nice profile to it. So, and I'm talking to you in Taiwan. I know a lot of these guys in Glendronach, Brown-Forman, they're starting to chill filter their whiskey to appease the Asian market. But come on, guys, get with the program. Anyway, this is matured for over 25 years in the finest bourbon cask and finished in the port cask, distilled in the finest malted barley. Carefully matured according to the strictly respected tradition methods of 1897, etc. This was distilled in 88. This is a bottle number 3612. So there must have been at least 5,000 of this. Let's see what the yield was. Usually they tell me the yield on this, but they're not telling me. This is an ex-bourbon, ex-tawny port. This is tawny. So when you're thinking port, I want you to think of two things. Well, I want you to think of one thing that usually goes to two different types. Age of the port. Your tawnies are your older ports. Your rubies are your sweeter, younger ports. So if you like a sweet port with your whiskey, you're going to want to gravitate toward the ruby type. Tawnies are a little bit more savory in nature, not as sweet, and still good. They're just definitely aged. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with your port stuff. Anyway, this is a tawny. That's a good sign. They're not using some. Well, I like ruby. I like the Laphroaig Carriages from 2013 as a ruby port, if I remember correctly. Rodeer, I think they use ruby for that. Really great port influenced, matured, whatever whiskeys. Those are the ones that are my top that come to mind are the Laphroaig ones. I've had some good ones from other distilleries. Those are like, there was the Springbank 19 port cask matured up there, that blue bottle right there. That was a great whiskey. 19-year Springbank port cask maturation. Tell me what's not to like about that. But anyway, I think that might have been a ruby. But don't quote me on that. I have to look that up later on, some down the road sometime. But anyway, I've had this poured out for quite a while. 25 minutes minimum. This has probably been sitting out honestly for an hour at this point since I've been talking about a couple other grains first. Shout out to Generously Paul. Thank you so much for those 2 pours, man. I really appreciate it. And so sorry to be so late with the reviews, but I'll get those posted up there at some point after I review this and go back and filter, blah blah blah. Oh, okay. Runs a little faster than those greens, surprisingly, but it's not too quick. Definitely holds the shape. I'm seeing like 4 or 5 legs starting to form, even just after a couple runarounds deal. The port's not in your face on the nose on this one. So, but don't be scared. Don't be don't have don't be prejudiced against the dram. If you don't like the nose, it's not always bad. So keep that in mind. This nose is not bad. It's just not as in your face as you would think maybe it should be, but it's definitely. I'm gonna cover it because I don't have a whiskey coin nearby on the ready, but I'm going to try to get a more concentrated nose here in a second. But this one, I think the ABV does not help the nose. I think higher ABVs, I'm not sure how, why, intensity, it's something. They usually do tend to have better noses, I've noticed, with the intensity of the whiskey. Not only the palate, but I think it does affect the nose quality. This one's a bit on the weaker side on the nose so far, but let's see if... the first note I'm getting of all things is cherries. That's crazy on a port whiskey, but I'm getting some grapes. It's more of like your red grapes. It's heavy, not like your Concord grapes, not your real heavy purple ones, but this is more of like a nice heavy red one, I'd say. It's got some nice. Sorry about the dryer. I think my wife just turned on the dryer over there. I have to use an open mic. My headset broke on me, so the quality of the AirPod Maxes is not good on the audio, so that's why I'm using the audio out in the open like this. But there's some nice dry fruit in there. I mean, you do get your... I'm not sure if you get plum level, but you definitely get your borderline currant. I'd say borderline deep ruby red stuff. Nothing purple yet on the nose. We'll get to that in a second. But the nose, that's a nice... It's got some... Even has like a Thai... not Thai. It has like a tea kind of flavor kind of going on. Oh, sorry. Let's catch up with the comments here. Hey, good to see you, man. Greg's Whiskey Guy. Good to see you, man. Always good to see you come on the show and say, have some comments there. Coming back late. The both greens were surprisingly good. They both were amazingly better than I thought because I've only had one green that I really enjoyed, and I didn't like the North British, but I did like the Evergordon 32 year. So one was a Canvas 25, the other was a Port Dundas 28. The Port Dundas 28 was better. The Port Dundas 28 was a Clandini independent bottling. The other one was good, 3.75 instead of the 4 like I gave the Port Dundas. This is 3.75 on the Canvas. It's a 25-year. The independent bottler was Risky Broker, so keep that in mind on that. Both good, both above average, but didn't blow me away. But no green whiskey ever has really blown me away. Even the high-end hedonism stuff, it's just not my wheelhouse. Like Scotch is. Even bourbon, being from Kentucky, you would think I would love it, but it's just not my wheelhouse like some of these ones. Yeah, we're all still here. Sorry, I've been talking up a storm the past hour already, which is crazy how time just flies by when you're having fun. Had a chance to try the 21, 30, and 40-year-old Glenglassaugh. Well, I was quite impressed. Awesome. Good. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. I haven't done that one yet. That'll be last after this Glenmorangie 25 we're having here. Bonjour, yeah, bonjour, definitely. Less impressed by some old official bottlings of Glenmorangie, probably. While on site, as some samples from Graham were way greater than those 21, 25 releases. So the GM, I'm assuming he's saying Glenmorangie, or is he still talking about Glenglassaugh? Glenglassaugh. I'm just curious on that one. He's lurking from work. I like it. Yeah, I missed you too, Teddy. Good to see you, man. It's been a while. I've been thought, hey, it's been a while. Got a couple really good bottles to share with you guys, and I thought, what the hell? Let's have a couple old reviews. I'm 5 years behind one, and let's do a couple new ones just to even the score here. Always good to see Teddy KGB too. 9:09 p.m. in Paris. Wow, been thinking of the guys from Canada maybe out there. I've just posted a video about Two Brewers Classic 31, by the way. Cool. Check out Greg Whiskey guy's channel. He's always been a good guy. Always been been here supportive of the channel with me and Malt Muser when we used to do the show together. And hopefully Malt gets a chance to stop by and say hi at some point. Haven't done a show with him in ages, only because I had to take a break and he moved away, and I'm not as much into the shipping thing and all that, and it just got to be crazy with the music and the work and all that stuff. So I took a big long break, but I'm gonna probably dabble here and there still. Tu vas bien? Yeah. Salut, Greg. Je vais. Oh, I'm not gonna try to. I could probably do it, but I'll probably butcher the pronunciation. J'habite sur le bassin de Con maintenant, something like that. I love the French. And my little girl, she's just turning 14 this next week. She's going up to Quebec City for a school trip here for 4 days here in a week, and I'm so glad that she found like I could visit her to take French, because I enjoyed it in high school. I'm not fluent by any means, but I'm glad she's taking, because we're thinking about maybe trying to find a place up in New Hampshire at some point. Um, and my goal is if I can get like within an hour to the beach in New Hampshire, and maybe on an elevated plane where I can do my radio stuff, but be like an hour and a half or 2 hours away from Montreal. How could you go wrong with that, man? So hopefully I'll run into Swami sometime. That would be pretty cool. I got to run and watch later. It's so cool to have you. But yeah, anytime everyone's welcome to hang out anytime they can. And hopefully, guys that can't watch live with me, hopefully you'll come back and have a dram virtually with me and comment. Feel free to comment. I don't get a lot of comments on the shows. I always was hoping to get more as we have done it, for years. But thankfully, a lot of you guys can make the show, so that's probably why we don't get a whole lot on there. But yeah, anytime you guys have a question or comment or anything, feel free to put a comment on there. You need to try my Carsbridge 1965 41-year-old my vintage from a BB&R 5 sherry, but stunning. Wow, Carsbridge. So that's not like Cameron Bridge. Are you talking about Cameron Bridge or Carsbridge? Is Carsbridge like an old defunct grain distillery? Tell me a little bit more about that when you get a chance. I've been to Glenmora too, so those cast samples are from Glenmora. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, lesson. Eric's time zone, so missed a lot of Malt shows lately. No, I understand. But when you have the occasion, please say hi to Eric. I will definitely say hi. I haven't talked to him in a while. I did give him my new number. I changed work numbers, and didn't want to use my work phone anymore for any personal stuff at all. So I went ahead and flopped him over and gave him my personal number. So you never know. Maybe we'll get a hair up our ass and do a show together at some point. I don't know. I haven't talked to him like seriously in a while, but hopefully Eric Maltneys are out there. If you're out there, you're having a good deal. But yeah, everything's been good so far. Carsbridge's legendary close. Okay, way more interesting in my humble opinion than Cameron Bridge. Cool. Okay, I'd love to get a. I know you don't have samples available, but if anyone ever sees a sample of that at some point, let me know, because I would definitely be more than willing to partake. Because I've been lucky enough to have a Aurora, Rosebank, Port Ellen, these dead distilleries, Dallas Dew, a favorite. I love Little Mill, and I think Lady Burn was another one. I have nothing against dead distilleries. I like trying all of it. So if you guys see anything, let me know, and I'll try to pick something up on the side. But anyway, like I said, nose not great, but not bad. Just not really. Everything's really subtle on this, and I think the ABV is just not really helpful. But I do get a little bit of the port cask. I'm definitely sensing it tawny. I don't get any really bright grapes that you usually do on a ruby type, so I'm definitely getting the tawny on this. A little minerality, but nothing bad. So let's go in for a taste. And that's the difference, my friend. The taste on this is actually really good. I was surprised that that I've never tried it, never ran into it before. You really do get the port notes on the palate, and surprisingly, the finish is longer than I would expect it to be. Even for a 25 at that price point, you're right underneath 300. It's like, wow. I mean, that's impressive. So, if you're, you definitely want your nose palate finish to be bam, pow in your face if you can get it. But if you can't get your nose, if you get a palate and finish, that's really well done. Sometimes it does, finish is still going. By the way, that's one thing that I definitely noticed right away on this whiskey that stood out surprisingly for me. The finish is still going. It's really, really well done on that piece at least. It's a much bigger swallow when you have 43% whiskey though. But yeah. So that's the thing. I mean, I'm getting nice white pepper, a little spice, getting definitely all the bourbon notes with the port. It is balanced. It's pretty well balanced with the port, and it's still getting the sugar, the brown. This is more of like a medium brown sugar level. The thing about this one that stands out is the finish. I think is the strongest thing it has going for it. But I'm not saying you should run out and get this one per se, but if you do see it under 300, I would consider pulling the trigger, especially if you've only dabbled in some port cask finishes. This is a Speyside, and we need to do a little more homework though. Let's do a quick look. Now, one thing I noticed looking at the details of this, and this is something that everyone should definitely keep in mind. When they don't talk about coloring or chill filtration, usually it's a negative because that means it probably is colored and chill filtered. But it's not a law. It's not the rule. There is a way you can tell. The easiest way, well, if you're in Germany, it's really easy because they have to post what's on the bottle. I wish they did that in America too, but that's a German thing. In Germany, they have to tell you what's in the whiskey, even if it's E150A and all that kind of stuff. The chill filtration, I think they have to tell you there too, but don't quote me. So hopefully someone from Germany can verify that. But for this one, Whiskey Exchange, they're based out of England, I believe. They've always been a big store, kind of like Malt. The Master of Malt is another one that's been around for quite some time. They don't ship to America anymore, sadly, but I think the Whiskey Exchange might still do it. Pretty sure they still will deliver, but anyway, depends on your state, of course, too. So look up the shipping before you order anything. But let's look and see if they have this one, because typically on Whiskey Exchange, I've noticed they are really good about being really specific about what's really in it. There's that Glenmora port cask finish. It's like 40% ABV. Guys, maybe in the America version there's a little higher, because I know sometimes you get 43 here, 40 over there, but man, that's low. Why would you bother with 40%? But I'm not going to get into that right now. Let's go and try to find this 25. Hopefully they even offer it here so I can try to pick out. But if they don't, I have another trick that we can try. Show more bottles to see if they have it. I see a 21. That's a port wood finish. Let's see, 18. That's a regular. Let's see. Peated even, but not a 25. That is surprising that they have a 21 and a 12, 15, everything but the 101. Well, sometimes if you can't find exactly what you're looking for, you go to the next best thing. since they have an 18, 21, I think the 21 is probably the closest. Now, the 21 is 46.3. So I'm not sure why they would go from 46.3 on that on their 21 year to a 43% on their 25. That's a little sussy, as my daughter would say. It's a little sussy. Well, does that mean the 21 could be better since it's a better ABV? It still has a great age statement. Could be, but you never, water under the bridge at this point. Let's see if we can find any coloring. So it's not chill filtered. That's a good sign. No chill filtration. I do not see any statement, though, on coloring, and that's when you kind of have to be iffy. So I'm pretty confident they would not bother to chill filter their 25 year if they don't do their 21. So that's a good thing. Coloring, though, but I mean, one thing you do have to, when you get into coloring in whiskey, and this is when you're talking about Dalmore and some of these guys that definitely do a whole lot of coloring, you know who I'm talking about. This is not, when you're looking at the big scheme of things, if you're going to bother to color, would you put it, I mean, I would make it hell of a lot darker than this if I was going to bother to color it. You see what I'm trying to say there? So even if they do any coloring, I'm suspicious that they might do for like consistency, trying to keep the look of the whiskey consistent. That does happen a lot of times, and that's where I can understand when you're dealing with like low end whiskey. Like if you're churning out Dalmore 12, millions and millions of it, and you're giving it to Asia, and all they care about is they just want their whiskey, and they don't care about the color and chill filtration. I understand just turning it out that way, but when you're getting above 20-year-old whiskeys, you would think you'd be a little more careful about the process and the craft. That's all I'm going to say. So keep that in mind. Sorry, let me go back to. I have to look into that. No, not so much left. So never will ship it abroad, but glad you asked. Glad you had the good stuff, Telex, as you say. Kurt won't complain. A rare opportunity he had tasting stuff. I'm sure. I think. Is it official? Yeah, this is the official. Official Glasgow 30. There's one thing that makes me a little leery, and that's her. She makes me a little nervous, but she does good work too. So, not sure about it. Haven't opened it up yet either. So I better open that. You know what we should do? We should open this now, pour it, and then that way, by the time I get done with this Glenmore, we'll at least have some time. I mean, I'm not going to wait for a half hour per se, but this was a very special bottle. This is one I splurged on because I've been working my ass off the last couple of years on a lot of different things, and it's funny. I mean, if all distilleries for me to really like go crazy on, I typically would do an Isla or a Campbelltown only. This one is different to me because you don't really see this often with these guys. Glenglassaugh is a good distillery, but they usually only have a Torfa, Revival, and one other one. What's the name I'm looking for, guys? Torfa, Revival, and shit. I have to look it up. You guys will probably beat me to the punch before I open it up, but let's see. Glenglassaugh. Glassaughh. If you can believe it, I can actually spell that, which is crazy in itself. Oh, I have one too many N's though. There we go. Let's see if we can get this up here. Evolution, that's the other one. And that's probably the best of the three. Evolution, Revival. Evolution's probably the best. Torfa's probably the second. I prefer the Torfa though, honestly, because I like a peated malt. Torfa's their peated malt. They got an Evolution, which is their higher end regular single malt, and they got a Revival, which is like right underneath that, I'd say. They all do. I mean, the Torfa and Evolution, they usually average when they're graded around a 4 out of 5, so they're not bad. The Revival is about a 3.5 out of 5, so it's not typically a bad whiskey. You just don't see any age statements for these guys ever that I've ever seen. I know someone, I think Greg talked about a 26. Yeah, everyone should have Germany regulations added wise. Oh, that's sad. Oh, okay. Yet to be open. Well, maybe this will convince you to open up that one, possibly. I really hope Glenmora someday will change hands because our French owners policy is rather weak and still relying on mass market NAS stuff. Yeah, that's a problem. They should get away from that. And even the 18-year-old is a shame regarding how great it could be. Yeah. Wow. Wonder how you got that 30 and for how much. I'll tell you on the side, Greg. Send me an email at telex@outlook.com. That's TELEX at outlook.com. And I will share you all the information there with you on how that. Yeah, I already broke the top, so that's easy. Let's go ahead and get it poured before. Let's sneak a little nose in there. Let's get it poured out. Well, that way I'm gonna do a big pour too. What the hell, right? You only live once for a 30-year whiskey. It's crazy. That color is amazing, I will say. God, I hope she doesn't color this stuff. If she does, it's sacrilegious. We'll put it that way. Anyway, we'll get that in a second. Get that over here out of the way, so I definitely don't want to break it. I got that sitting, and we're still doing with the Glenmora for now. But yeah. Oh, it is the old decanter, same as the 21-year-old, which is good, but not very shared in like 30 and 40-year-old. Gotcha. It's normal as production was stopped at some point, so they don't have more than 15-year-old stuff from the new owner. That makes sense. Or 10-year-old. Gotcha. 10 years. So they don't have anything older than 10 years because of the, yeah, gotcha. Jason, Jason. Nice to get more in touch with you there, Greg. And yeah, hit me up on the side and I'll give you more detailed information. They might even have another bottle of this. I can't guarantee it. I haven't looked. Before I tell you that, let me look and see if they have another one just in case. Not to say you're going to spend money on it, but just as a see here, because these guys are good if they have stock of not just getting one. But I must have got the last one because he does not have a postage. Sorry about that if that was the last one. He's got Revival, Torf, and Evolution. Good prices, 60, 70, and 55. But that's all he's got on there. Sorry about that. But good job finding that 26. I've seen it, heard of it, like in the, it's like a 2008, I think, type of deal. But no, that's when it was reopened, 2008. So it was bottled in 2010. So that 26-year is from 2010. No wonder I've never seen it. But, so this one is, let me see if there's any details on this one. Probably not. I'll have to do some digging on the side. But this is no chill filtration, natural cask imparted color, which is an interesting way of saying it. But I'll take that as natural cask imparted color means natural color. Tell me, Greg, if I'm off on that one. But yeah, this is going to be, I think, a lot of fun to get into. It's got a weird ABV. I'll get into that in a second, though, too. So anyway, let's go back to Glenmora and finish that out before I get all crazy. 1 second. So since the Glenmora 25 is, the coloring is iffy, I doubt they'd color this because it looks like a natural 25. If there is any coloring in this, I'm assuming this is probably for consistency's sake. It definitely is not chill filtered. Great 25-year statement, but 43% ABV is where I'm like, oh man, but it could be worse. But nose, not up to par really. Palate, much, much better. Now I'm getting, maybe it's because it's been sitting out even longer, but the grapes are getting more to a Concord kind of level, more purple on the nose. Wow, maybe it just takes an hour or two for it to open up. It's been like an hour and a half since I might have, I don't know, poured that, but maybe at least a little while. But wow. Might be some raisins and dark chocolate in there too. Not bad. But the palate and the finish is where I think this one shines, honestly. Nose, not so much. Palate and finish. If you're into port cast tawny, not ruby, but if you're into tawny port and you're into an old bourbon influenced whiskey, I think it's well worth the Glenmore 25 if you could find it under 300. If you find it under 300, I'd say give it a try. Greg, on that 21 year that you've got, I think that I think you might have a gem because yours is better than I think ABV wise because yours is 46.3%. The coloring chill filtration, I believe, is the same. Might lose a few years on the age, but with the power being that higher, you might get better notes out of it. I'm not sure. The reason I like this one better than 21, I think for myself, is that that's a port wood finish rather than a port cask finish. So it's kind of any port type of notes on that are probably really on the low end. I'm gonna guess, but tell me what you think. I'm just curious. Let me go back. Sorry. I mean they have old stock, but from their owners, yeah. Yeah, Brown-Forman is the new stuff. The funny thing is that the Brown-Forman did package this 30-year-old, so I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but it does say Brown-Forman was the importer on this one. I'm not sure if but this is definitely a Rachel Berry deal, so that could get interesting. We'll come back to that in a little bit, though. No problem, man. Damned imparted color, fucking new statement. Hate that it means that they can get color from cask wood tech rather than natural heavy chard. Be not happy of the Brown-Forman. Yeah, I don't like it either, man. So just dropping the non-chill filtration. Yeah, that shit is kind of shitty. But the good news is on this particular 30-year-old, it specifically does say no chill filtration. So I will commend her for that. And this imparted color thing, I'm kind of like, well, it's pretty dark, but it is 30 years of age. I don't know how to take it. It's sherry, so it's going to be. I could definitely tell you if they're trying to fool me or not, because I could, rather than visual sherry, I can definitely taste all sorts of different, like from Pedro Jimenez, to Oloroso, the whole 9 yards. So we can definitely get into that. I'm not a fan of many of Richard Berry's decisions. For instance, not a fan of the new Benrag 10. Nowhere near the old Curiosity Mount. Agreed wholeheartedly, my friend. Definitely. I'm not too keen on her taking over Benrag. I think Billy Walker was the guy there. That same guy that does Glenglassaugh now, right? How well is Glenglassaugh doing nowadays? Pretty damn well from what I remember, because I just bought a couple of their high end, like 160 ish. But they have a really nice high-end, high ABV cast strength. I think it's like a 12 to. It's got an age statement on it too. It's really, 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 really nice. Billy Walker's no joke when it comes to the Smoky 10. Oh, great! If this is 30-year-old, it's not chill filtered. Yeah, I was gonna say it better not be. I'd be like, what? That'd be a complete waste of freaking time. And at a weird ABV, this one's also 41%. I mean, who does 40? Oh, I'm sorry, 42. 42% ABV. Like I've heard of 40. You see 43, 46, 48. I've never seen a 42% ABV, but thank God it's not 40. So I'm not gonna bitch too much, right? Sometimes we have to be happy with what we can get. Especially when you're dealing with 30-year-old whiskey there. But back to the Glenmore before we get there. It's solid for the price too. I mean, I just wish the nose was better. That's the tough one. Not a fan of modern Glenglassaugh as well too. Such a hype today. I only have one Glenglassaugh, but it's high-end stuff from a while ago, 35 years. Check out Glenglassaugh now that Billy Walker's taken over. They have some nice, if you see like a 10-year PX, I think they've got a cast strength version of that does pretty well. They have some like mid-year, 15, 18-year stuff that's pretty good. I've had their 25. The one you might see. I have had, this guy is no joke. It's a nice whiskey. 48% ABV. Hey, you can't bitch about that. Great age statement, natural color, non-chill filter. Billy Walker puts his name on it. I don't see how anyone cannot like that. But with that said, if you do like a higher than 48% ABV on a 25-year-old whiskey, then I would say I would shoot you towards that new cast strength. Let me look up that exact bottle because I've bought at least 3 of those and have never been like underwhelmed or disappointed. And they're all batch, related deals. Let me see what the name of that is. If you find, this might be tougher to find than I'm thinking, but it's like these new cast strength offerings that you see a lot of. I'm trying to see how old some of these come up to. It's not terribly old, but not too young either. I think it's like a 12 or 14 years, somewhere around there. But keep your eye on cast strength 14, 13, somewhere around there. Year releases. They're usually like 58% ABV. They're usually at least 12 to 14 years of age. And they're definitely not chill filtered or colored by any means. So I'd be surprised if you didn't like some of that stuff that they're releasing nowadays. I can't speak for the older Glenglassaugh stuff. That might be part of it. I like their new 8-year more than the rest of the range. Wow, I haven't tried any of the really young stuff. I'm not a fan of putting that damn virgin oak everywhere to pretend that it's stuff. I don't blame you there. Does Deanston do that a lot too? I can't remember if they're. I know they have a virgin oak, but I'm not sure if. Yeah, I don't like overly woody whiskey. Oh no, man! I appreciate your all's tips too, because I learn from you guys every day. Every time I get on the internet looking around, or anytime I'm looking at reviews and all that, and your all's channels, I learn that all the time. So it's cyclical knowledge. But yeah, I have to see. On a number for this. Let's put a little 1 drop of water before we get a final score. Pour just a little bit more out, not much, but just enough to. Got to make it worth our while, right? Yeah, Glimmer is one of those more iffy ones usually, but this one was a pleasant surprise. If you like a port cask, I think they did a good job with it. Wish it was 48% like the Glenglassaugh one, but that's the only thing I can really bitch about right at this point, which is not much of a bitch. Did a fresh pour, put a couple of drops, little drops in there just to see if we get anything different. Anybody drinking anything today? I'm just curious if what you guys are having with me. Hopefully, I see if there's at least a bunch of you guys in there watching. I see. So let me know what you guys are drinking if you got a chance. I'm debating on what to get next. I've got a couple bottles here on my radar that are distillery left. The only distillery bottles left I have not gotten yet are. I'll give you guys a heads up what I'm looking for. If you ever see anything out there, it's not easy at this point. I'm down that like to the last of the last, but Balmanek. They're a Tybev distillery. I saw a 25-year-old on this one auction in like a few years ago. That was like a unicorn bottle. It was like a German auction, and I don't speak German, so it was kind of one of those things I wasn't sure I would even want to get involved with, and I'm sure the bottle probably would have gone at least for $500. I didn't do that, so I don't see that one at all. Balmanek is not something you see distillery bottles for. So hopefully you guys can steer me. If you ever see a Balmanek distillery bottle in the field, please let me know. Besides, I had a blast and I opened a new bottle of Springbank 10. Nice. Yeah, I'm interested in seeing that because I noticed a big difference when I haven't had a bottle in a while. It's like probably 2017 or 16, but the price difference is crazy. $75 for the 10 when I started my whiskey journey back in 2015 or 16. But now it's like, man, unless you're spending 115 or 120, you can't even get a bottle of Springbank 10 anymore. It's insane. So lucky I found a decent price. And even I even saved us a reserve bottle of that 2020 local. Yeah. I'm surprised that they still had it. That's nuts because Springbank's definitely something you don't see on the shelf sitting around. Thankfully, Springbank isn't the distillery I need, but Ben Nevis is one. I've had my eye on any Benevis 21 distillery bottle that you can find, but they've been pretty mothballed for a while. Nika bought Benevis and has been releasing these NASs sadly recently. But the reason is because they don't have any older whiskey available. The old 21 I would love to sink my teeth into, but probably never find it. Probably never find it affordable. Milton Duff, that's another distillery that I need a bottle from. Cannot find any distillery bottle for those guys of any age. So Milton Duff, if you're out there, let me know. Bowmore is one of those distilleries that I try to stay away from unless I get the perfect distillery bottle. Let me tell you what I mean. If you go out and get a normal Bowmore 18 or 25, you're probably going to be disappointed. And the main reason is the ABV is so freaking low usually. The coloring is so there. It's just not usually well crafted. It's usually a big mess when you deal with distillery bottles of Bowmore. I'm not knocking them. I'm sure that, they've got their deal and all that, but it's just not for me. But with that said, I still want to give them a chance at the distillery. So I had my eye on this 26-year French oak. I think it was the Vitenier. What is it called? It started with a V. Series they had, and I saw this bottle, and it was like $300 or so. And for the 26 French oak, I should have jumped at the chance of that in a heartbeat. I mistakenly waited, and now I don't see it anywhere. So I've got my eye out for a really high-end, nice, well-aged, but distillery bottle of Bowmore. But I want it to be high ABV. I want it to be well-crafted. I don't want any bullshit. So please keep that in mind. Let me see what I missed here. It looks like you found those decent price. Yeah. 12-year cask strength is way hard to find menus. Yeah, the long rows for sure. Oh, was lucky. No, Bradyville is one of those distilleries that you never saw any distillery offerings, right? But watch this. I did find, and if you ever find this, I would recommend picking it up. This is the Braze of Glenlivet. It's a 30-year cask strength release they did. Holy wow. I think you might have had this, Greg. I'm not sure. But it's pretty well done. I did not do a review on this because I was not doing shows at the time. With that said, though, I think I enjoyed it. Sorry to not offer a report for you guys if you've never had it. I apologize, but it is out there. I think you can still find it if you do some homework. This one was from December of 1988, bottle number 314, batch BG002. So I'm assuming maybe second batch, bottled in August 2020. So 1988 to 2020. And let's see, American oak barrels and hogsheads. 53% ABV was the ABV on that sucker. This is from the UK. It's a 70 centiliter bottle, but you can find these. So I would definitely keep your eye on that. I'll also, Greg, if you're interested in this one, I will tell you where I got it and what the price was for this one if you are inclined. I don't mind sharing, especially after I've already partaken. So that is definitely one I believe to put on your radar if you're a Brayville fan, because that's something else there. But one I never tried before is I want to get one. Old stuff and some indie marvels. Yeah, independent is where they really shine. I've noticed on the Bowmores. Yeah, I've actually on the number one vaults, Atlantic Sea Salt. I've heard of that. I've heard, I think someone else, I can't remember if it was Swami or, I know he's a big number one, I think, fan in the Bowmore series, if I remember correctly. But I don't know, man. That's a tough one. But I'll definitely keep a look at it. I've heard on that one too. Wow, those are really hard to find distillery bottles in that. Yeah, that's an old 30-year-old. Yeah, you should definitely. It wasn't. I don't think it was expensive as you probably thought. So send me an email and I'll give you details on the side. That's no problem, man. I'll see you when you come back. But yeah, the no issues with that one. I think they might. I don't know if they still have that one, but hopefully they will if you're interested in that one. We'll see. But let's go back and finish out this. I've been stalling this Glenmore. Oh, we're talking about independent bottles. Too. I mean, sorry, distillery bottles. I need too. I needed Kalila 25. I just don't want the basic Kalila 25. I want a cast strength Kalila 25. So I've been holding out for the Kalila's cast strength 25. If anyone ever sees it, let me know. I do have my eye on a 28-year Fettercairn. I know where it is typically, but they sold out. I might have to pull the trigger at some point. A 28-year Glenkeith. Want to pull the trigger on that one. I can't afford the crazy 30-year-old Glen Orb. They have an 18-year. I might try to pull the trigger on at some point. The 25 Glenglassaugh. Now, I know 18 is out there. Glenglassaugh, I do love the 15. I want a 25-year-old Glenglassaugh. Please help me find one. I want to get one. Glenbergie is a one that I've never had before. You only usually see those like the Flora and Fauna bottle, I think. But they have an 18 supposedly somewhere. Pinot Ricard is the vendor on that one. Glenkinchie, Diageo, of course. Lowland. They have a 24-year-old, supposedly. I've never seen it. I want to get that one. Glenrothes has a 25. That one is, you see usually pretty regularly. It's Edrington. They also do Macallan. So Glen Talkers is one I've always wanted to find. I've only been familiar with the 15-year-old Ballantines, though. I can't find a Glen Talkers official bottle anywhere. Glen Turret's got a 27-year-old that I would love to get. Macduff has got a 30-year-old, but it's called Glendeverin. So it's a Glendeverin release. Have seen it in the wild before. Didn't pull the trigger when I should have, and I missed out on that one. So hopefully I can find a Glendeverin 30 somewhere at a reasonable price. Mortlach is one of those distilleries I've never really dove into yet. They have got a 20-year-old I have my eye on, but it's always out there. I'm kind of like, it's one of those last ones I'll probably pick up because I'm not usually into the real meaty, savory drams like Mortlach's known for, but sometimes I like it. It depends. Like Lawnmower is pretty good for spicy stuff, but anyway, Oban. Oban's got a 21-year-old, but it's crazy expensive. I want a cast strength version. If I'm going to spend that kind of money on a whiskey, it better be cast strength. So Oban 21 cast strength, if I can find it somewhere, that would be nice. Probably won't be able to find it. Strathlisla is another one I want to get. Pinot Ricard, it's got a 12-year. I think it might be a Flora and Fauna bottle. Strathmill is another one. They are Diageo. They got a 25-year somewhere. Can't find it. Talisker is another one where I want to get the 25, but I don't want any just 25. I want the cast strength 25. So that one I'm looking for. Tom Avulin's got a 79 vintage year I want to get my hands around. And Tom and Tool's got a 30-year-old that's a space side. It's 49.7% ABV, which sounds really good for an independent, a distillery bottle. So I might get that one. Last but not least, I need a Tormore. I've seen it have a new 16-year-old. I want to try to get my hands on that one if I can, but these are ones that are really, really, really rough. Please be back at some time so they can allow me to get in chat more. Yeah, it'd be cool. Oban, Cardew, Strathmill, underrated. Yeah, Oban, I've only one outside of the Little Bay and the 18 that's normal that you see usually is that I've had that Oban Bay Reserve that was a release of the right there. That was one of those Game of Thrones releases. Typically, the Game of Thrones ones were hit and miss. Like half of them were good, half of them were kind of like eh. That one was actually pretty good. I thought it was definitely smokier than I expected it to be, which was surprising. Not peatier, but smokier. The Cardew, I've had the 18 and been fine with it. It's not something I seek out, but that's the best Cardew I could find was the 18. If you can find anything better as far as age statement, let me know. And Strathmill I have yet to find, so hopefully I can get those. Speaking cold, yeah. Trying to find these last ones. Those are the last. I've got 23 distilleries that I need to go that I have not gotten yet on the distillery bottle. Once I have those last distillery bottles, then I'm going to go hardcore independent and see what we can get. Probably try to do a lot of El Delphas, things like that. But anyway, thanks for letting me share all the bottles I'm trying to get to wrap up my distillery voyage with. It's taken 5-6 years, but you can't drink all this stuff in one day either. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I wish this nose was better on the 25 Glenmore, but taste-wise, That's pretty good. Have you guys ever had any of these I'm speaking of, or any of the distillery bottles? Please let me know. And if not, in the live chat, in the comments afterward, if you don't mind. We tried old stuff under the pre-Diageo Real Malt section stuff. You'll never see those overload distilleries the same way again. Yeah, that's true, man. If you could find one of those old Rosebank or even some of those Othrosk, Auchroisk, the Othrosk, if you could find that and then for a final bottle, sometimes you get really, really good stuff. I've noticed. I've had the chance to try some good stuff from them because it started 25 years ago on my whiskey journey. Wow, dude, you got to, you. Hopefully, I could be to that level in about 15 years if I'm still around. I'm not even 50 yet, so I should be okay. But hopefully I'll be at a good level by the time I get to 25 years in, man. That'll be amazing because it's only been since 2015, I guess. So it's been 7 years, 8 years, I guess. But I guess 2025 will be my 10-year anniversary. I'll have to do something special for that. Anyway, but I really appreciate you guys coming in with me on this. The Glenmore, I'm going to finalize that. The finish is there. It has more of a It's got the finish is it might be longer than I thought, but yet it kind of mellows out in like a cantaloupe honeydew kind of a thing. I like it. I wish it was a little bit more, maybe had more earthier characteristics to the finish, but you can't be too bitchy about this. To get like the honeydew and the cantaloupe and the watermelon after the fact for so long is not something to really, freak out about either. You got to go in, I guess, thinking the price point on this one too. If it's right around 3, is it worth it? For a 25-year-old that's not chill filtered, that has tawny port characteristics that stay true, I do think it's worth it. I'm not going to give it a 5 out of 5 by any means, or even a 4 point something, but I think this is I think it's a solid 4 out of 5 whiskey. I really do. I don't see going wrong per se, unless you're the type that has to have a beautiful nose every time. If you're not, if you're not if you're not too picky about the nose, I think you'll enjoy it. But palate finish. There is. I think your ears were ringing there, Swami, because I was talking about you earlier, my friend. My daughter and wife are going up to Quebec City here in a couple weeks. They have a school field trip for my daughter. She's 14, and should be really fun. She's been taking French for a few years, trying to get her more into it, and I think she's got the bug where she's had it for a few years in middle school. She starts ninth grade next year, and they have a higher end French option there. So I'm hoping she gets more into it. And if I play my cards right, if I get a place up near New Hampshire, I would love to visit Montreal on a regular basis. So hopefully we can. I hope this laughing your ass off is a good laugh and not a bad laugh in my expense. Put it that way, Swami. Indie bottles at collectors stands and Kimberly shows is also a good option. Paper jam to have an idea of those old unicorns. Yeah, it's tons more affordable than you think. It's true. Yeah. Good to see Swami. Oh, Raymaster, man. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. I've been heavy into music and heavy into work and heavy into Parks in the Air. Look up parksintheair.com if you get a chance. It's a good nonprofit that I run here in America, but we're international. We do Parks on the Air all over the world, literally, even in Antarctica. We're everywhere. Anyway, I've been very, very busy, but that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Just can't do as much whiskey fun of as I've been wanting to. But with a couple purchases lately, I thought, hey, what the hell? We should have a little fun with our friends. And it's even though it's already 4 o'clock, it's been a couple hours. It's like the fastest 2 hours I've ever spent. Tu vas bien? Very cool. Super. Seriously. Cool. Hey, Fred Hansen. I think you're. Are you? I think you might be Norwegian, possibly. Kan du snakke norsk svenska also? I'm just curious. Yeah, that's from Wispy hibernate. Not really hibernation, but no, just laughing because I haven't caught your show at least a year. Well, I haven't done a show in over a year, Swami. That's the only reason why you haven't caught me. I've been off the. I haven't been like teetotaling, or I haven't been like anti whiskey or anything. I've been so much doing a lot of music and a lot of Parks in the Air, which is parksintheair.com, POTA.app, POTA.app. Shows where all these guys are all over the world activating parks and getting hunters. We got 379,000 people all over the world hunting us down in parks, trying to perfect our emergency communications and things like that. We don't depend on the internet. We don't depend on anybody but ourselves. We got our radio, our transceiver, and our antenna, and that's all we need. So it's pretty fun. We just had we just had a big event, and I bet Fred will know where I'm talking about. Bouvet Island. You know where Bouvet is, probably. For those that don't know, Bouvet Island is the second most wanted radio contact in the world. The reason being is this is extremely remote. It's like in the Indian or Atlantic. It's in the Atlantic Ocean down there by off the coast of like Argentina, next to Antarctica. It's really remote, really cold, really rough seas. We just had some guys there this last week, believe it or not, do we call it a D expedition, where DX is like your long distance contacts when you're on the radio. So being in America, in the United States, I want to try to get every other country I possibly can. There's 340 entities that we track, and Bouvet Island is the second most wanted. They just finished up an activity down there. So Tucson talked to the guys down there at Bouvet. They were all Norwegian operators, and I commend them for even trying. They wanted to do 3 weeks an activation there, but they only could do like a few days. That's how rough it was down there weather-wise. So keep that in mind. It's pretty cool. I quit drinking hard liquor a few years ago. That's cool, man. I understand, because it definitely catches up with you at some point. And it's for me, it's a family affair that I have to be kind of careful of too. So if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's all good. What's your best value whiskey of 2022? Yes, mine is, I'll ask for you guys, a French market exclusive. Kilchoman. The Kilchoman beats all the core range for me. Kilchoman, man. Anthony, wow, what's his name again? Anthony, I want to say Anthony Phillips. I'm thinking of the guy that used to play in Genesis back in the day. Anthony Wells, is it? I got so many Kilchomans back here. I should know his name by heart. Swami's had him on a ton of, I think at least a time or two on his channel back in the day. What's his damn name? I should know this about heart. It's Anthony W, isn't it? Wills, yes. Sorry about that. I knew it was W. I thought it was Wells, Wells, but it's Wills. There we go. Yeah, he's something else, man. That guy knows he knows what he's fucking doing for sure. Out of all the distilleries, and as you could tell, I've been all over the place in Scotland, 200 and something of them. Kilchoman is a gem among young gems, and I cannot wait. I've never got to myself. I've never had a chance to get a 10, 12-year Kilchoman yet. I know they're out there, but my God, would I love to get my hands on a 10, 12, 15, whatever they've got available. I would be all over it. It'd be crazy. It'd be awesome. Let me catch up here. Sorry about that. You asked me about the best value. Man, that's a tough one. Best value whiskey. Value. That is really, really, really tough. Bang for the buck whiskey. I'll tell you what I usually gravitate towards when I'm just getting like, I just want a whiskey. I wish the damn stuff was cheaper. It used to be $80, but the Lagavulin 16 is usually pretty good for just a run of the mill. Get it, but now they want 120. So that's the anti-value whiskey, I'd say at this point. More value. Oh man, Highland Park's usually pretty good value-wise. I think the 18 used to be 130 in America. This is 5-6 years ago though. I'm thinking it's bounced up to 180-ish. Is it worth it? The Highland Park 18 is one of my favorites. That's a tough one to really get around. I wouldn't go for the 21, 25, any of those crazy prices when you get above like the 150 price range. But if you can get an 18 for 150 to 180, man, that's pretty good. But that's not like my wheelhouse. I mean, the Glendronachs are overpriced nowadays. Even I honestly cannot answer your question because I haven't been really very frugal enough to tell you what's the best value. I just know that I usually go for like a Glenmorangie, like a 14 Quinta Raban. If I want like a cheap port cask influenced whiskey, that's not bad. La Santa is always good for a sherry. If I'm feeling, adventurous money wise, I'd bump it up maybe to McKellen, but that's way too high for what you're asking. I don't know. I'm not as good. That's a good question. Canadian whiskey I just reviewed on my channel is really close to my whiskey. Wow, that's surprising too. See, that's one thing I haven't really dabbled in at all is any Canadian whiskey like Few or some of the other ones. I've never even tried them before. I need to try it. Is that the island where people eat fermented sheep and dolphin? Possibly, because it's extremely remote. But no, it's an inhabited island. There's nobody that actually lives there. And it's really rough to get there. By the way, very impressed by the. I know that's not what you were looking for, Swami, but I answered your question. Very impressed by the blended work there. True Brewers Classic number 31. Can you still enjoy beer, Swami? That's a good question. Yeah. Still drink beer in moderation. Good. Have you tried Fallon North Canadian blended whiskey? I have 15-year-olds now in Kilhoman. Wow. And that's sad as someone in the United States. I hate saying American because we're all Americans in North America and South America. But as someone from the United States, I'm surprised that you can't find a 10 or 12 here at all anywhere. You have to special order it or from the distillery or something, I think. I'm still hesitating to get the Madura matured because of mixed reviews. Is this the Kilhoman that you're talking about? The Madeira. Have I had the Madeira? I'm looking back here. I've got a lot of Kilhomans down here. I've had a lot of different ones, but we've got the red wine cask, the Sine, the Ambric, the bottle of Bond, the USA, the Fino, the PX, the cask strength, the Sauternes, the STR, the Vintage 2008, the Lochgorn, and a couple other specialty bottles. So I've had my share. I need a Saligo Bay, I need a Cool Point, and I need anything else that I don't have. I'm definitely a collector of that stuff, but I have not had their Madeira, but I liked the Lefroy Carriages Madeira that was from 2016, I want to say. Am I right, Swami? I think the Lefroy Carriages Madeira, I think was a 2016 Carriages. I think that was the one. I don't actually like that one because I do like sweets. I have a sweet tooth, and it really was on the sweeter end, I think, for that. Hard to beat a Speyburn 15 for $65. That's a good call because I have been lucky enough to have even the Speyburn 25, which is that really silvery box right. Whoa, right there. That's a Speyburn 25. The 18 and 15, I have not had the 18, but I have had the 15. And for that price, I do remember that's pretty good. It kind of reminds me of the Enoch, and the reason being is Enoch is also done by Thai Bev, or also known as Enver something or other, I think nowadays. But Thai Bev does both Speyburn and Enoch, and Enoch 24 is the best. There you go. There's your value, Greg. The best value whiskey to me, next to everyone's good call on the Speyburn 15, is the Enoch 24 for $220. You can't beat that. No way. Impossible. Full volume, I remember, was at least a 14-year-old whiskey, and that was really good if you like a real straightforward bourbon cask in your face on steroids kind of whiskey. I did like that one, but nope, those core range Glenmorangies, not yeah. That I mean, just for the I'm just speaking for the price. It's hard to beat $50 for a whiskey. The Kilhoman Madeira, I want to try. I've heard that. Well, I haven't say I don't want to say I've heard it's good, but I've had Madeira whiskeys that I've loved. I love every Kilhoman I've ever had, pretty much to an extent that I can think of. So I don't see how I could go wrong with it. I do have a lot of kill 'em, and it's kind of scary, but it's all Swami's fault, I think. I think he was the original. If I'm going back and remembering all the guys that were doing, lots of these guys used to do reviews left and right, but thankfully Swami was pretty careful about the quality of whiskey, and I know he got into them pretty early on when he was dabbling in all sorts of distilleries. That one stood out for me as well as far as quality. Especially that old original cast strength, that green bottle. Oh my god! If you ever get a chance, where is this one? I think it might be up there. Yeah, the one on the top shelf, this green original cast whiskey from 2016. Not the oldest one from 28, but if you can get that original cast strength from 2016, no matter what the price is, it's almost worth it because if you like peanut brittle, it's the best peanut brittle whiskey I've ever had in my entire life. It's so good. If you're a sucker for mid-year finishes like I am, I think you would like it. But I never had it. I can't vouch for it yet. Still haven't tried that Speedburn 15 yet. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you'll get a chance because it's not bad. No, I'm in near Annapolis, Maryland, the capital of Maryland, near DC, basically. He used to live in DC. That's how I knew Eric from before when he was Rabbit and Red back in the day when he was living in DC. That's how we met, and we were doing some shows right before he left. Then he went to Chicago for a while. I think he was maybe did he end up in Los Angeles or something? I can't remember. He was moving all. He was talking about moving to either Milwaukee where he was from, or California where he knew some. I think some lady possibly. I don't want to get in the weeds, but yeah, it's one of those deals. But no, I'm not leaving Annapolis. Mike, if we ever can afford it, maybe get a place up in New Hampshire so I can visit Montreal on a regular basis. But at this point, no, I like it here. I'm not going anywhere, so we'll keep it at that. All right, let's get to this damn last one here. It's already been almost 2.5 hours. I better get to work on this one. But Glenmore is not, not a 4.5 or 5, but I give it a 4 out of 5. I'd say it's pretty solid for the price. If it was $500, then I'll be like, no, you don't want to go there. But if it's under 3, I think it's worth a gamble if you like port cast finishes. We recently reviewed a Kilchoman cast strength here in Quebec for 115 Canadian. Cast strength for, was it the 2016 version or the 2014 or previous version? The 2014 previous version is not that good, so please don't think that's the one I'm talking about. It's got to be the 2016 version. The second release of the original cast strength is the one that Moncure Bay, yeah, that one I don't have yet. It's funny, I have a lot of Kilchoman, but I never tried the 100% Isla or the Moncure Bay because they were so prevalent. You see them all the time. I did know that they did a cast strength version of the Moncure Bay, and that's the one I want to get. So hopefully, when I'm looking again, I'll be lucky enough to find that. But I'm not going to, hold my breath either. So glad you came by, Swami, because it's been a while since I saw you, and I was hoping you were doing well. When I'm up in Canada next time, I'll have to, send you a text or something to say, hey. But it'd be fun to, even if we don't have a dram, we can have a beer or something maybe. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming by. I really appreciate it. Fair winds to you as well. Considering the price inflation of the 18-year-olds these days, the Aaron 18, that's a good one. As I do love the Aaron 20. I was lucky enough to have the Aaron 21, which is that blue one right there. Great whiskey. But for the money, the 18, if you can find it for under 150, I guarantee you that would be something else. I don't see how you could go wrong with that, honestly. I really don't. Moncure Bay is quite old, so it's a bit weak. We had to enhance it with some cast strength SC. I know CS is cast strength. SC. What's SC, Greg? I know. It's not chill filtering. It's not cast strength. It's what am I missing here? Sample something, no. Cereal cask? I'm trying to think of what it could be. I know cask strength, those samples got the same strain of surprises be with it. Oh, single cask. There you go. Sorry. I knew I was missing something. I'm like, what is he talking about? Single cask. I should have remembered that. Yeah, single cask and cask strength samples. Oh my lord. I'm surprised that it was old and weak because Kilhoman and weak or well both Kilhoman and the weak in old doesn't really usually go hand in hand together. That's why I'm surprised you said it that way. But that's okay. Let's get to this last one. Let's see what we got here. Now, Rachel Berry scares me. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not so sure about this one, but we're gonna give it a good college try. Cleanse the palate with the water here. Good to see you, Welsh Taro. There's a name I haven't seen in ages. Great to see you, man. It's been a while. Yeah, I had to take out some time off from music and parksintheair.com to focus more on my whiskey experience a little again. So, oh, a 2012. That makes sense. Isn't that funny how like 10 years just flies by before you know it? It's crazy, but always good to see Welsh Toro. I've been, yeah, between music and work and Parks in the Air, it's been taking all my time. But ooh, okay, all right. I definitely smell the sherry in there. All right, let's take a look at this last bottle that we got, so I can let you guys get on your merry ways. But I had a great time already. It's already been over 2 hours in. It feels like it's only been like 10, 15 minutes. Anyway, this last one I normally would not get because I've been lucky enough to have 1 second. I like a lot of a lot of progressive rock. I like a lot of Yes, Genesis, Floyd, King Crimson. That's my wheelhouse. Kansas, that's kind of stuff. And but I'm wanting to recalibrate the quality that you got from the 70s, that type of writing with a 2020 sound, if that makes any sense, with the technology that we have in 2023, etc. That's why I'm jonesing for this Korg PA5X. I've been waiting over a year for. They won't release it in the United States, so I'm like jonesing to get my hands on one, but it's just not out there. But eventually I will have it. But got my Mellotron ready. I've got my Korg uh, analog synth ready. I've got all my drums ready. I've got my Marshall 8240 stereo chorus ready. I've got my Fender stuff ready. I've got everything ready. It's just a matter of getting this last piece keyboard that I need to start doing some heavy duty recording and arranging. It's gonna be badass when I finish it. I'll definitely share it with you guys when I get started. I'm a bit of a perfectionist though, so I don't like releasing things unless I'm happy with it, if you know what I mean. But that's what it is at this point. But we'll see. But anyway, uh, Glenglassaugh is one of those distilleries that is not really out in your face. They're another Thai bev, I believe, right? No, what was Glenglassaugh? Let me take a look real fast. That was a Highland Brown Foreman. Okay, that makes more sense because the Rachel Berry thing. Anyway, um, Brown Foreman has had them for a while, but they're not treated like their Glendronix or their other, more known distilleries. They just have the three NASs. They have the Evolution, the Revival, and the Torfa. Torfa being the peated, the other two being non-peated. The Torfa I actually do like, even as an NAS. Did appreciate the Revival, not so much the Evolution. That's just not my wheelhouse. But I had a hell of a time trying to find an aged distillery bottle that was affordable. Put it that way. They had a 26, I think Greg was talking about earlier, a 20 something that you would sometimes see. Let me also pull up this on the site so I have this to go by. 1 second. Glenglassaugh. Sorry, I thought I already had this up here, but I have to pull it back up here again. Anyway, but enjoying the the Torfa and the Evolution as much. It was a little easier to go ahead and pull the trigger on this, even though it wasn't easy because of the price. But the 26 did so well. I'm thinking surely the 30 would be a bit of an even better boost, especially if it has a sherry cast type that we're talking about. This is the Glenglassaugh 30. I just opened it up and poured it about a good hour ago, actually, to get it set in the thing. This is the bottle. Pretty nice, looking bottle. I'm not much on marketing and all that stuff, but I like the way they presented it. It also came, unlike one thing that was kind of weird. Unlike the Glenmora that came in the wooden box, this one was a more of a standard green, type of what I would consider a kind of regular, but it did kind of have a weird front facing thing where you open it like that, which I thought was kind of interesting. But thankfully, it is no frills. So they didn't do, a lot of frou-frou marketing on this, which I'm actually kind of glad that they didn't. But it might have just been because it was emphasis on selling whiskey like in the masses like they are nowadays. But either way, this one is this one did scare me with her signature on it, but she's done some decent work in the past too. It's not all bad. So I thought, well, with an chill filtered, natural cast, imparted color, which I'm not sure what we talked about that earlier. I don't know, but I figured, well, it's above 40 ABV at least. It's 42 though. So 42 is on the lower side. I'm not real happy about that piece, but we'll see how it goes. Oh yes, yes, definitely. Something about England by the Pound is one of my favorites. My personal favorite though is Foxtrot. I like the musical box a lot, and Firth of Fifth, man. Firth of Fifth, I can listen to. I think that might be on Selling actually. I think you're right. Firth of Fifth is like one of the best songs ever written. I'd say, pretty sure. It's 2.5 hours now, only because I've been having fun with you guys, and yeah, love Mellotron, more into the metal than prog. King Crimson for Red is one of my favorites in the court of Red is one of my favorite albums, and my favorite drummer of all time is Bill Bruford. He played with King Crimson, did his own solo stuff. He played with Genesis. Bill Bruford is the master percussionist that I base my drumming off of, as well as Noel Peart from Rush. Those are my favorite two drummers that tells you anything. I'm not just playing four on the floor. Billy Walker once said that one of his biggest risky regrets is that he didn't have the time to do something great with Glenglassaugh. I could see why. I could see that. Isn't it weird how Billy Walker and Rachel Berry have this like weird cross paths where she goes, he used to be, and it's all they're kind of connected in some weird facet. Does anyone know why Rachel Berry and Billy Walker have like crossed paths so much with this? I'm just kind of curious. Dump it in the sherry barrel, you mean? A 30-year-old looks not a fan. Is obviously linked to the cognac tradition-shaped bottles. Yeah, they did kind of the same with the first releases. The Balvenie I had a chance to try a long time ago. I haven't had any Balvenies of that type of bottle. That would be cool. Balvenies I've had are usually the standard. Even the 21 Portwood was pretty standard. The worst packaging on any bottle I've ever had was the Macallan 18. It took me like 30 years to figure out how to get it because it was like hard plastic coated, and they didn't give you any special tools to get it out. And I even took a knife and tried to like pry my way out. I've never spent more time on trying to get a whiskey bottle open than the Macallan 18. That'll tell you something too. Yep, always playing tricks and keeping it interesting. Yes, that's my guy, man. That's like if I put my musical taste up on like personnel, John Wetton, great vocalist, great bass player, was in Asia, King Crimson, UK. Come on, he's probably the best vocalist, progressive wise, that I can remember. I loved his sound, baritone, not too high, not too low, good, powerful vocal. Not a bad. I think, did he write any lyrics, or was that someone else? I think he was a pretty decent lyricist at some point, wasn't he? That was his lyrics, maybe. I can't remember, but at least I know he could play bass and sing like a madman, so that was good. Geddy Lee was always great bass playing, but the vocals were a little different. I like his stuff, but I know it's kind of one of those things. John Anderson, same thing. Love his vocals, and yes, but that's a whole nother thing. But when it comes to guitar, Steve Howe, Alex Lifeson, it's hard to beat. Steve Hackett. Steve Hackett's up there too. Oh man, those are like the trifecta. I'd say Howe, Lifeson, and Hackett. How can you get better? Holdsworth, Fripp, of course. Those are the best guitarists that I could think of. Anyway, keyboardist Rick Wakeman. Yeah, try to beat that guy. Rick Wakeman is something else. Tony Kaye wasn't a slouch, but he's always been pretty good with sound. Not like a technical player, but with sound, he was always really good. I liked his Hammond playing. Keith Emerson, of course. You can't talk keyboards without Keith Emerson, man. Oh man, who else? Oh, I could go on forever about this stuff, but anyway, and bass, Chris Squire. Chris Squire is the bass player. Period. That sound, the playing, everything is perfect. Anyway, left on tangents. Let's go back to the whiskey. But yeah, it's the cognac like bottle is kind of funny, but the 42% really makes me kind of like, what were they thinking? This is bottle number 11612. So this is like 11,612. How many bottles they released of this stuff? I'm wondering. I'm guessing 20,000, 25 maybe, but that's just a mere guess. But anyway, like the color, but is it real? That's where you have to be careful. And like I said, we're going to take a quick look on Whiskey Exchange. Sometimes, unless you're in Germany, like I said, it's really hard to get truth on the way the whiskey is presented. And I am big on coloring and chill filtration. So let's take a little look. Unfortunately, they do not have the high-end age-stated stuff. They do have a 72 age-stated one. Wow. I want $4,000 for it, but that's crazy. 43.2% ABV and 70 centiliters. So that's a UK bottle for sure. 200 bottles of this 36-year-old cherry cask from 72 vintage. Wow, but that's a good one. Anyway, that's a 30 years, but not the same 30 I've got. Let's see if it's got any coloring and stuff in it. Yes, on the coloring. Fuck. You gotta hate that kind of shit. Why would you bother? Why would you bother with that stuff? Anyway, well, we probably are dealing with coloring. Chill filtration they don't talk about. I doubt they would bother with a 42, 43% whiskey. Why? Let's see if they have a 40-year-old here. Let's take a quick look at that. See if they say no coloring on their 40. No chill filtration on their 40. Well, that's a good thing. Let me go back to the 30-year-old and see if it's got any information of the. It's got yes to the coloring, but nothing on chill filtration. But that's a different bottle. They don't have this particular one. It's weird that they don't color or filtrate their 40, but they might on the 30. That is weird. Let me see if I can find any other information on this before I definitely say either way that it is colored or chill filtrated. Let's see. Glenglassaugh 30. Sorry for the delay on this. I just want to make sure before I tell you guys for certain if I can, but this one might be one of those in the muddy river where it's not really stated unless maybe in Germany someone could tell me if it's there. But you gotta love it when they make you fill out your birthday for these sites. It's so funny. I'm like, I can't even remember when I was 21 last. Oh man. First expression to be released by the new owners. But this is maybe this is a brand new 30. It says first expression to be released by the new owners. The 30-year-old's a rich, complex whiskey, blah blah blah, 30-year, 42% ABV. It says amber for color. It doesn't really say. I don't think they would bother coloring this. I just don't see why, but I don't know. Is it? Would you think that would look like a typical 30-year-old whiskey? I mean, if it's sherried, which it supposedly is, I would say yes, but since they have colored some of their other 30-year-old stuff, I'm gonna say this has probably got something in here for consistency, at least the minimum. But chill filtration, I can't get an exact answer yet, but we'll see here in a second. Have to go call us from mails and chats and stuff. No, no problem, man. And come by anytime you want. Yeah, hopefully I can get you on a Saturday, maybe during the day. I don't mind. I drink early sometimes. It's fun. I always struggle to find room on these decanters in my place. I hear you there. Yeah, same here in the basement. Funny, I'm big prog head too. Did you notice all the '90s and early 2000s? Big. Yeah, prog revival. Yeah, it's funny. I was born in '75, so when I grew up, I didn't get into prog until I was about 13 years of age. And my dad had this neighbor at the time that had a hi-fi high fidelity audio receiver and speakers, had a nice set. And he had a vinyl, he had a record, and he put on Rush's 2112 from '76. And I was blown away. I mean, from the initial, I'm not sure if that's a Moog or a Oberheim polyphonic or whatever they're using. But that initial like spacey intro that they do, leading to Lifeson's like echo bouncing of the guitar to the drums and all that to come. It's like, man, I mean, it just blew me away. I mean, not even to get into the Ayn Rand philosophy of fulfilling one's own destiny and some people think it's pretentious, but some people think it's good to be self-reliant and self-motivated and that's a whole another thing. But anyway, not to get into the weeds, but that was something else that got me into the genre. And then I remember when I was not a freshman, but I was a sophomore in high school. What year was this? 91? I want to say 91. That's when I first got into Floyd, and my teacher of all people, and I was not great in math. I would excel in every other subject but math, probably because of the rule structure and all that. But anyway, never really. I was lucky that I did well in math enough to have geometry as in eighth grade. I'm sorry, algebra 1 eighth grade, geometry and as a freshman, algebra 2 as a sophomore. So in algebra 2, I remember I was getting tutored probably because I wanted to talk music with my math teacher, but he was a saxophone player, and he would always talk about music, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm a huge Rush fan. He's like, Rush? He's like, you need to listen to some Pink Floyd. I'm like, all I knew was like Dark Side of the Moon, maybe some Wish You Were Here, The Wall, of course, but nothing like their full catalog, like Pipers at the Gates of Dawn from '68 all the way. And he's like, you need to put on Animals. You're a guitarist, so I think you'll appreciate Animals as your album. For me, he's like, for me, it's Wish You Were Here was the album that got me into saxophone and really in that whole thing. But he's like, if I was an acoustic electric guitarist, I probably would gravitate towards Animals. And was he ever right? As soon as I heard that album, I never, even though from 1978, in 1991, I appreciated everything about it. And I still to this day, still play it all the time, still play all the parts all the time on bass, guitar, whatever, drums, however I can play it, I will play it. And that was the seed that got me going, was that. And then King Crimson came next with Robert Fripp and getting into Adrian Belew, former fellow Kentuckian originally. And seeing Bill Bruford come from Yes, go to King Crimson and all that. I mean, it's all connected. It really all is. I could talk to you guys about music seriously for like hours and not even be bored. Where do you guys sit with Jethro Tull? Yeah, I never was a big Tull fan, only because of the folkness of their sound. Ian Anderson's vocals, I didn't dislike them, but I didn't really get into their sound as much. I probably would appreciate Thick as a Brick and some of these other albums if I sat down and listened to them. I just never gave them the time of day. I probably should, to be honest with you. Calling a 30-year-old whiskey is a major problem. Surely not. You'd be surprised, but they have. If you want to see what I'm talking about, go to Whiskey Exchange and pull up. They have a list of a Glenglassaugh from '72, a 36-year-old aged over 30 years whiskey, and it's the same type of box, same type of everything. And if you look under coloring, it says yes. Under their 40-year-old, though, they say no. So I'm surprised that I would see coloring in 130 and not the 40. It's like, why would you bother in a 30-year-old but not bother in the 40? Does it make any damn sense? No. Anyway, but it is sad either way, no matter how you look at it. But yeah, I was kind of iffy about this one, but I thought, you know what? I don't have any Glenglassaugh distillery old bottles, and I'm never going to see this again. Not cheap at all, but I was like, for this, to experience it and share my experience, it's worth the battle. So let's do it. Thanks for sticking around too, by the way. Oh, sorry. Let me pull down here. Raymaster. Be able to play those tunes myself. But I suck at guitar and art isn't exactly easy to play. I'm blessed. The only thing I can do. There's only three things that I can do extremely, extremely, extremely savant, almost level well. It's music and like technology. Getting into being on the spectrum helps a whole lot with that kind of stuff when it comes to focus and being hyper into certain things and not so much being able to focus on other things and that kind of stuff. But with all that said, just lucky. I picked up the guitar pretty easily. Bass kind of came natural. Keyboards was fairly easy as a teenager picking up, and then the drums I never touched until like the end of 2019 or early 2020 is when I started picking up drums, and thankfully it came naturally. I didn't think it would, but it did, because I thought, well, stringed instruments and percussion instruments, even though they're kind of in the same family, they're not, but they are. It's weird how that works, but as long as you have rhythm, can read the odd times as far as 5/4, 6/4, 4/4 swings, and tempo differences, allegro, partissimo, and all that. And as long as you can follow all that stuff, that's not too bad. It's some people, I guess, have a knack for saying, like, like, I can't build anything. Like, if you ask me to, even the most remote, simplest machine, I cannot use my hands to build anything. I'm a theoretical software kind of guy, so that tells you a lot there too. If you color whiskey that age, it has been aged in pour cast, aged until Kingdom Come to get flavored a bit, and we'll cover it. Yeah, really like their stuff in the '70s. Southern Live '99. Wow, I bet he could. I bet he could. Yeah, I'll do like Ian Anderson's flute playing, as well as Peter Gabriel from the old school Genesis stuff. I really like Anthony Phillips. I mentioned earlier. If you ever listen to the Musical Box, he actually wrote that song. It was called F sharp, I believe, back in the old days. A lot of 12-string action. I love it. To listen to that and the drums and all that, and then you go into like Watcher of the Skies. Oh, Watcher of the Skies is my favorite Mellotron. I love the drums in it. That's Genesis. One of their best tunes, I think, is Watcher of the Skies. I could listen to it 100 times and never get bored. It's weird. It's just one of those songs, kind of like In the Wake of Poseidon off the King Crimson's second album. That Mellotron and that guitar, the acoustic guitar, Greg Lake's vocals. What the hell else do you want? But anyway, let's go on back into the whiskey. This is going to turn out into a Scotch music hour. Anyway, I should probably just do that because I'm afraid of like someone like trying to sue me over some copyright bullshit. Though that's why I don't really ever do music on YouTube. But maybe someday I'll venture. But anyway. I wish the nose was more powerful. I think this 42% is killing it. It just doesn't have the oomph that you would want. And I said the same thing about the Glenmora at 43%. 42 is not going to be any better. It's going to be 1% less. So that tells you something. We got a runner, so it definitely doesn't hold its shape very well. That's not a great sign, but I do get some really nice sherry qualities from the nose, at least, though. Even though it's not like what I would consider powerful, it's enough to. It's a really nice. It's like a nice combination of sweetness from all the fruit, but it's also has a little bit of a minerality that's subtle, that's not too much in your face where it takes away or distracts, from the. Sometimes it's hard to get spice on nose. Sometimes like I'm able to detect it, sometimes not. Not getting any spices per se on the nose, but I'm getting a complexity of a lot of different types of sweetness and a lot of different types of florals and a lot of different types of like fruit flavors all combined. It's sweeter than I thought it would be. I'm not we're using any glasses. I'm always going neat, but it's a nice nose. It's more floral and fruity than I thought it would be for a 30-year-old. I thought it would be a lot more subtle, but it's subtle at first, but it does get more into it the more but not a lot of complexity per se as far as just overall. I mean, it's overall nice. But when you talk about this kind of money for a 30-year-old whiskey, you want it to be a lot more than just nice on the nose. Getting some nice combinations of like cherry blossoms with cherries, but some kind of gumdroppy stuff going on in there too. It's very sweet. I'm surprised at how sweet it is on the nose. I'm not like against it though, because I do have a sweet tooth, more so than most people. So if you don't like a sweet dram, you might not like the nose on this one as much. And florals, a lot of florals. It's nicely blended together though, and as far as all the little notes that you get with the oranges and the cherries and the, but no darkness or minerality other than just subtle. Hmm. Nothing compote or anything like that. Let's have a sippy. Wow. Okay. Palate is. Hmm. Wow. Okay. Not what I expected, really. It's really tough when you start out with a couple greens and they're high ABV, and you know what you like, you know what you expect. But then when you go to Glenmora 25, even you still have that oomph in the palate with the port cask and all that. It's good, but wow. I mean, on one hand, it's extremely easy to drink, but it is 42% ABV. I mean, what's not easy to drink at 42? But is it well refined? It is well refined. I do have to commend her on that as far as the everything blends well together. Everything makes sense together. It's not disjointed. It is a work of art when it comes to the everything fitting together like a puzzle. But the quality of the puzzle is where I'm kind of getting kind of like, oh man, I don't know. She puts together a nice puzzle, but is the puzzle worth what you're doing? Sorry to get off on tangents in that. Let me go back up here. Wow, you guys are like, here we go. Okay, so if you color whiskey, yeah, it's crazy. Too bad they watered down 3010 whiskey as a cast strength. That's the weird thing. Now, when you look at this, the way they describe this, let me just read you guys what this says. Glenglassaugh Distillery, overlooking the breathtaking shores of Sandon Bay on Scotland's Moray Firth coast, lay silent for over 2 decades before production was restarted in 2008. Its heritage stretches back to 1875 when the distillery was founded by a local philanthropist, Colonel James Moore. Glenglassaugh is still handcrafted in small batches, and its distinctly sweet, lush coastal character is naturally shaped by the elements of the North Sea location. Blah 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 marketing. The award-winning Glasgow 30 is an exceptionally rare and complex whiskey for our coastal Highland, blah blah blah, of natural cask imparted color, which it kills me to say that natural cask imparted color, non-chill filtered and matured for over 30 years in bourbon and sherry casks. Nature's elemental influence is evident with a notable coastal note complemented by the rich aromas of tropical fruits with hidden toffee and gentle spices. Which, yeah, I mean, it's got the tropical fruits. I mean, toffee. When I think toffee, I think like Heath Bar, like Werther's Originals, kind of like that, like a more of a toffee flavor. I don't get that from this. Gentle spice, I'm cool with, but yeah. And as far as cast strength goes, no. There's no way. There's just no way. They should have, if they had a way to keep that ABV higher than even 43. I would have gone 46 if like I mean, if Billy Walker can do it at Glenelg, why can't these guys do it? You know, that's the way I look at it. I would go 46, 48 if I could get it. But oh man, I was a senior in high school in '94, and I remember trying to see those guys live. It's one of the I've seen a lot of bands live. I've seen the Who live. I've seen Ozzy Osbourne live. I've seen Metallica live in '88. I've seen, oh man, so many bands. Yes live. I've seen Rush live. I've seen a lot of bands over the years. I've never seen Floyd, and that was one of the killers to me, is not being into them early enough to go see them before they stop playing, especially with Richard Wright. Richard Wright is my favorite Floyd member, not just because of his songwriting and his voice, but his harmonizations with Gilmour. If you ever listen to Obscured by Clouds, one of my favorite records by Floyd, he's got some gems on there. That's all I'm going to say. Favorite guitarist is Julian Breen, classical, of course, but a master, self-taught from a tough background. Always said he was a musician first, guitarist second, revived the flute as well. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of ethnomusicology. I study other countries' music and the way they tune, the way they play. The pinpia from Thailand is one of my favorite instruments. It's like you have a coconut shell that you put on your chest, and you have 4 strings, and you do what's called pak, which is like a natural harmonic, where you take one hand and you have your thumb, you like pop it like if you're used to playing guitar, you know what a natural or artificial harmonic is. It's more of an artificial where you're hitting it, and right after you hit the string, you touch it with your finger to get that harmonic to happen. Well, the pak with the pinpia from Thailand, it's all played like that. It's all I'd say 75% of your notes are going to be those harmonics, and the rest of 25% are actually notes. If that makes sense. And there's a lot of vibrato and a lot of like it's crazy, but I get into all that kind of stuff. And like I said, Thai tuning is a whole different thing. It's not even Thai. The tuning is completely different than Western tuning, and it's not the same as other even Oriental tuning. I should say Oriental, but other Eastern tunings, I should say. So you got to be careful about all that. Wow, the Marble remains in Montreal. I didn't know they had an exhibit up there. That'd be cool. In case you don't know them, Spock's Beard. Oh yes, I'm huge into Spock's Beard, and a new band. If you're not familiar with, you should check them out. Pattern Seeking Animals. Pattern-Seeking Animals. It's the same guys that started Spock's Beard, but after 2018, with their last album, I think was with Noise Floor, they ceased to exist. It seems like as Spock's Beard, but David Moros, one of my favorite bass players, reminds me of Chris Squire a whole lot. He's played with Spock's Beard from the initial thing, I think. No Moros brothers, but you got Ted Leonis, I think, is the vocalist guitarist for that group, with Jimmy Keegan as drums. And they don't have the Japanese cool guy that does the keyboards in Spock's Beard. They got John I can't pronounce his name. John Boagold, I think is how you say it. He's a writer that writes a whole freaking lot, but he doesn't play very much. I guess what happened was, I don't know the ins and outs of Spock's Beard, but I guess it came to the point where a couple of members probably didn't want to go on, or didn't have the time, or had other conflicting prerogatives or whatever. And they probably thought, well, Dave's on board, Jimmy's on board. They had Ted, so they probably got John to come in because he's already writing. So they probably had him come in and play keyboards, I'm thinking. But make a very long story short, definitely check out 3 albums by Pattern Seeking Animals, and they're very recent. One of them is from 2022, Only Passing Through. Favorite jam. I listen to it daily. Second album, Persistential Tales, I think it's called. Persistential Tales, something like that. It's got a song called Here in My Autumn. It's my favorite jam by them, probably of all their songs. Here in My Autumn is a really good one. And they have a self-titled first album. And this is all within the last 5 years. So definitely check out Pattern Seeking Animals. Transatlantic, I do like as well. Really, really, really good stuff. Sometimes 40% is just fine. I'm drinking a superb Spanish brandy. And that's what I was saying about the sometimes you get lucky with the even though I know a lot will knock it, the King Alexander, even though it's Dalmore and they, people get all upset about coloring and the low ABV, but that's one of those special casks. They have 5 specialized casks. It's pretty good. I'm not saying it's worth $400, but if you could find, like, I found a bottle for $200. I don't know. Yeah, no PSA, no ban on Inside Out escapes me. Well, there you go, my friend. You know exactly what I'm into too. Then, yeah, I like. If you're wanting some newer groups, check out Elder, ELDER. They have a really. They used to do some more heavier stuff, but lately they've been. I'm not sure if you're familiar with their latest work. They just released. What is it called? I'll tell you in a second. One second. Innate Passage. Check out Innate Passage by Elder. They are really, 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 really good. I like that one a lot. Moon Patrol, I believe. Is that the group I'm thinking of? Out of Seattle? They're pretty good, I believe, if I'm thinking right. Is that Moon Patrol? I think it is. Hold on. There's a group out of Seattle that's had a couple of albums that's kind of reminds me of like a little bit of old school Rush. It's got kind of a cool sound. They have a instrumental that I like a lot called Skabre or something like that. It's pretty good, I remember. But out of new stuff, I'd say that Wobbler from Norway, Wobbler, I believe. Yeah, from Norway, Wobbler. If you don't know Wobbler, you got a few albums that are really, really damn good. Fred Hansen, he's from Norway. He should know those guys. If he doesn't, definitely check him out. I think it's all pretty good. But getting back, yeah, it's just so. It's funny. It's supposed to be a sherry cask influence, but I'm getting bourbon notes everywhere on this Glenglassaugh 30. So it's kind of a. That one's kind of. I'm some of a disappointment, but the sherry's not in my face as much as I was hoping it would be. I'm definitely sensing a PX, not an Oloroso in this, because of the sweetness. But when it's this sweet, it's hard to discern the PX versus Oloroso because you do have old aged stuff in here too. So it's kind of a definitely. I'm leaning towards a PX though. I can't tell you what it is, but let me see if the palate if I'm going to say Oloroso or a PX. Palate's better than the nose, thankfully. Wow. Okay. More of the we call it like a blonde. It reminds me of like a blondie brownie. Like it has a lot of like the blondie brownie kind of things going on in it. That part's really cool. But sherry wise, I'm not really. Yeah, remaster. If you're going to use Elder, do the latest album only. Don't go to their really old stuff. Go to the latest album. It's called what is that? Incarthesis, I think, or something like that. That is good. That is really good. The palate is the star of this. The nose is to be lacking, I have to say, but the palate. Okay. I'm a sucker for sweetness, though. It's really tough. Yeah, Innate Passage is the one you need to look up for Elder if you're going to get into their newer stuff. If you do like that one, then I might maybe go backwards into like Omens is pretty good too. The pre-Omens they have a different kind of a sound, like Lore and some of their older albums. It's kind of iffy, but I would definitely check out Omens and Innate Passage as a intro. Oh yeah, I'm a huge Stephen Wilson, Porcupine Tree. both his solo work and his work with Porcupine Tree, like all of it. Insurgents, the Raven album, Grace for Drowning, all that's really good, and as well as their whole catalog with Porcupine Tree. I'm not so much big on the first album on the Sunday of the Life, whatever it's called. It's a little, it's a little adolescent sounding to me, but other than that, The Sky Moves Sideways was one of my favorite albums. It kind of reminds me a lot of Pink Floyd. So if you like Floyd, you'll definitely like the Sky Moves Sideways. Once you get into like Dead Wing and In Absentia and Fear of a Blank Planet and The Incident, things like that, there's hit and misses. I do love In Absentia. In Absentia, I can't even say it. In Absentia is my favorite next to the new one. Closure Continuation is they're both really good. The Incident is, I don't think the songs are as well written, but man, the Fear of a Blank Planet and that's probably my top jam next to Absentia and the new one. Closure and Continuation is really damn good. But even better than that, you gotta think also Gavin Harrison is one of my favorite new drummers. Like I think Bill Bruford and Neil Peart as far as classic drumming being the best. But if you're talking new drummers, who's the best? It's Gavin Harrison. Gavin Harrison plays with King Crimson and he plays in Porcupine Tree. Not only that, he plays in Pineapple Thief is another band. If you're not familiar with him, you should be if you're not. Pineapple Thief is one of my favorites. Oh, the Versions of the Truth from 2020 is my jam. I could listen to that 1,000 times and never be bored. Versions of the Truth is I'm waiting for their follow up. I know they rebranded some old songs recently in 2022, but I'm waiting for a new album because the Versions of the Truth was so good that I'm just jonesing for something new. Why does it 30 year? Yeah, why does it exist? It almost certainly a barrel for blending 30 years ago. It may have struggled and been aged until something could happen. Yeah. Great to catch up. Favorite topics are beverage, books, and music. All right, man. Well, yeah, anytime. Maybe I'll try to mix it up with some more musical stuff if I can on the side. It'll be fun. I know Drew from the Scotch for Dummies. He does a lot of music on the side. He's a software engineer, I think. I think he also does a lot of music still. If he does, I know he was at least into it at some point. I've been wanting to jam with him at some point. I'm not sure if we'll ever get a chance to do it. That would be fun. But yeah, I'll definitely once I get rolling on some of this recording stuff, I'll definitely share some stuff with you guys, maybe on the journey, and tell you where I am and where we're going, and why I'm picking 5/4 versus 6/4, and why I'm picking this sound versus another guitar sound, or this Mellotron sound versus another Mellotron sound, and all that good stuff. It'll be fun. So I'll definitely keep you guys part of the deal. Yeah, all great. Wasn't a fan of the new one. It's such a beast. Saw him live a few times. Saw Wilson the PC a few times solo as well. Hank, oh, that is the best. That is the best quintessential Steven Wilson album. Hank Cannot Erase was such a big one for me because the story in itself is so cool. Not in a not cool happy way. It's in a cool, like, wow, that's kind of sad way. It's about this lady that was not heard from for like 3 or 4 years. She lived by herself and she had a family, but she just kind of vanished and nobody even noticed. It was really strange, that whole thing. Definitely look up Ken Cannot Erase. It's worth a trip just for the lyrics if you don't love the music. And if you don't love the music, I'd be really surprised because once you get to Home Invasion Regret #9, there's a guitarist named Guthrie Govan who is my favorite newer guitarist that I could think of. He is the best innovative guitarist that I could think of. When if I'm just like, hey, give me a solo in Super Locrian in the key of D, he would he would do it. Give me enigmatic mode in the key of B flat, he would do it. It's crazy. He could probably play any style of anything and improvise tastefully within seconds. I've never heard anyone able to do that. First off, if you ever get a chance to listen, there's a YouTube video of him actually playing this. You should actually check it out. Home Invasion Regret #9 guitar solo by Guthrie Govan. Look it up. Watch him play it. It is the best solo I have ever heard, I think, in my entire life. It, it stands out. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Free Will by Rush. Alex Lifeson, great solo. I'm a huge fan of Lavillo Strangiato, same thing. Lifeson knows how to solo. Huge fan of a lot of Fripp solo, like um, the Three of a Perfect Pair is a great solo by Fripp, but nothing stands out like Guthrie Gavon's version of Home Invasion Regret Number 9. I could talk about it for years. So anyway, sorry about that, man. I can imagine if you got to see that live, you're a lucky motherfucker because Nick Beggs on the Chapman bass alone is worth the price of admission. Oh yeah, Kevin Harrison, which is funny that they're not related, but Kevin Harrison used to be their drummer way back in the day. If you're listening to old classic Pineapple Thief, it's nowhere near the caliber of Gavin. Just I mean, it's hard to play drums around someone like Gavin Harrison and stand up to par. But he's not. He wasn't bad. It kind of reminds me of Chris Maitland from old Porcupine Tree albums. He wasn't as good, I think, as Gavin, but man, because he could play. He could play, but like the old Light Bulb Sun, if you know that album, that's one of my favorites too. Like I like Even Less off of Stupid Dream is one of my favorite songs. It has the shortwave radio stuff, and the very end of it comes full circle, Parks on the Air. See, there's at the end of Even Less on the Stupid Dream album, first song, he recorded some shortwave radio stations where in the old days, and they still do this to this day, believe it or not, old clandestine spies will be out in the field with it's called a one-time pad, and they have a bunch of numbers that relates to letters, and it's only good for one day and only one time. It's what's called a one-time pad. And this is how spies, even to this day, in Cuba, Poland, United States, Russia, everywhere, they have these operators in the field, and someone will be sending these numbers like 257406469022190. It'll be like a robotic voice that's doing this over the airwaves. The other guy is sitting in the field and he's actually writing this down or deciphering the code based off this one-time pad. It's really cool when you get into the weeds on this stuff, but this all comes full circle. Guthrie's out of this world. What's the album? Isn't that crazy? Man, First Take. Oh, yeah. I could go on and on about that. That even the slide guitar in that song is pretty impressive. I don't understand why Steven doesn't do a lot more slide playing. If you listen to some of his stuff off of Hand Cannot Relate, the Hand Cannot Erase album, he reminds me of David Gilmour in his prime on the Fender Steel. Like he has that sound, he can replicate that, but he just doesn't play it very much anymore. I wish he did, but anyway, let's get back to the whiskey. If you like a great bourbon whiskey that's just kind of full more sweetness, you will love this Glenglassaugh 30. I mean, you will like it a lot. It's got a lot of those characteristics in there, and it's not like it's not harsh like an old bourbon would be. If you know anything about bourbon, you don't want it to be overly aged. You want it to be a sweet spot age-wise. It's not like Scotch where you want it to be as old as you possibly can get it. If you get a 50-year-old, 100-year-old Scotch, you're in heaven. But with bourbon, you don't want that. You want it to be the sweet spot. I think I remember talking to Eric Maltmuser, and I think him seeing a certain year. I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it was, but you definitely want a certain age on that. But this is definitely more of a Scotchy flavor, but it gives me all the checkmark boxes off of a beautiful, well done bourbon. But I didn't get this to enjoy bourbon. I got this to enjoy Scotch. So keep that in mind. That's what it reminds me of, though. For it to be sherried, I mean, I do get the sherry, but man, is it not as having a little pour here. It's not as in my face as I was hoping it would be, but anything refined for 30 years is hard to get, any intense notes unless you're really lucky with the ABV, it seems like. Steven said in one of his latest albums, most music of his music starts with him playing guitar. He's pretty much out of ideas nowadays, so it's country and keyboard at the moment. Yeah, I could relate to that because I used to do all my writing solely on acoustic guitar for a while. And I think it's good to change instruments if you're a multi-instrumentalist because it almost gets to be like a crutch when you're depending on certain chord formations if you're a guitarist. In if you're a multi-instrumentalist like I am, you'll know when you go from one instrument to another, you get a lot more flavor and a lot more chord progression opportunities than you would if you're stuck on one instrument alone. Like certain chords, for example, are easier or more flavorful, more interesting on guitar in some fashions, like real complex. Even if it's like an A over E, if you get all A and E notes together, it can be really full sounding if you're playing on a 12 string or a 16 string guitar or a bandolin from Ecuador or something like that. You really full fledged hear that thing. But and certain instruments like a piano even or another ethnic instrument, the chords will be different, so you might get a lot more flavors if that makes any sense to you for suspensions, diminish, augmented, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, back to the whiskey. Sorry about that. We go off on all day on music, man. I love it. But it's not a downer per se, but it's definitely not worth the price of admission, I'd say, on this whiskey by any means. I don't regret it per se. I do regret the price, but I don't regret pulling the trigger because I'll never see this again. But it's I'm going to reapproach this after because I've had a few dreams already, but I'm not over the hill or anything or way too over the influence to really be able to pick out stuff. But it's there, but is it as there as I was hoping it to be? And that's where I have to be kind of wary. It's so thin. It reminds me of a really good Glengoyne. If you know Glengoyne, they're on the thinner side. So Glenglassaugh is definitely when the medium to thin mouth coat. You're not going to get a Kleinlich here. So that's kind of one strike already. ABV is low, 43%. That's kind of a strike. Love the age statement, 30 years. It's hard to beat that. Glenglassaugh is a good distillery typically. They don't put out crappy whiskey usually. But the price point, man, it's just not worth it. But not a bad whiskey. I'm going to give this one a 3.5. It's just, it's good. It's above average. Am I getting the complexity in all the notes that I was hoping to get outside of your really good bourbon sherry influence with some, like I said, it definitely fills me with a PX kind of a more sweeter, even though it's higher age. I don't get a lot of dryness from this. It's more of a sweetness, a wet sweetness from it. And that's not so good when you're talking about old whiskey. Not a bad taste, but I'm just kind of like, oh man, it's good, but I want more of a 30-year-old whiskey. I want more complexity, I think. Let's see about that finish. How long does that finish go for? Nice little shop. Visited in 2019 about a young, very nice bottle of your own. 40 pounds, cast strength Marcella cast for 7-year-old. That sounds good. I bet that was pretty damn good. See, I would love to try some of their newer stuff to see what they're up to. But not a bad dram, not a great dram. 3.75, 3.5 is as high as I would go in this. I mean, I enjoyed the Glenmora, even maybe a slightly more than this, and that's saying something. For half the price, too. Wow. Not bad. Just, I don't know. I do like this really antique flavor I get on the finish that you don't get on any other whiskey unless it is 25, 30 years old. I do really enjoy that piece of it, but with the low ABV and with the craft being a little iffy. I don't think Rachel Berry did a horrible job with this by any means, but I'd rather have the Glenmora, to be honest with you, as sad as that sounds. Because the port cast finish they did on that was really well done comparatively for the price. It's half the price, literally, even more than half the price on the Glenmora at 300, under 300 versus the Glenglassaugh 30. It's like, for price, night and day difference. Quality, not so much different, in favor maybe of the Glenmora, which I'm pleasantly surprised, because it's a hell of a lot easier probably to get the Glenmora than it is the Glenglassaugh anyway. So that tells you something, right? Well, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me all this time. It's already been 3 hours now at 5 o'clock, which it's been fun. But I'm gonna have to think about this one for a bit. I might reapproach the Glenglassaugh at another show and see if it's any different. Maybe start with that one and then go to something else to make sure I give it its just due. But I'm just not surprisingly, I'm just not as into it. But if you do like a good solid old either bourbon cask influenced Scotch or something like it on the sweeter end, it's not a bad thing. But man, I would definitely be weary of the prices on some of these guys when you get to a certain point. Once you get above $300 or $400 for any whiskey, no matter what the age is, I know it's really, really painful. So definitely do your homework. And like I said, use whiskey exchange for your coloring, chill filtration needs. Use distiller for some extra notes if you need some on the side before you pull the trigger on some high-end purchase. A lot of us are good about doing reviews on there, and have had many, many, many over the years. So it's definitely worth a little look. Doesn't cost you anything, so you don't have anything to lose. And just stay current, stay active. I guess that's all we'll have to do. Thanks so much, guys, for stopping by Cilantro Va. And if I don't get to do it next Saturday, I'll try to do it at some point. It does suck when you start by and it's just kind of mediocre. It happens though. I'm just glad that when you hear about something about a Glenmora and you hear so many iffy, not negative, but just kind of like meh, blah kind of reviews. When you do find a 25 that's under around 300, if you're a port cast guy and it tickles the ivories, it's actually pretty nice. But with that said, then you go to something like then it's kind of like, oh man, what? I don't feel bad per se, but I don't feel great either. Have a good one, Ray. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and all the other guys that were on and off this whole time for a few hours. It's always fun. And check out Parks in the Air if you get a chance. A lot of us are still active. We do a lot of radio for fun. I'll share with you guys some music stuff that I come into. If I'm not active, don't be alarmed. It doesn't mean I'm gone. Travis Faircloth also is a catalyst of me getting back on the airwaves of doing some Scotch. So hopefully I'll run into him soon. I need to talk to him about some Edgedower, which I love Edgedower, and some other bottles that I might be looking for. Travis Faircloth, if you're out there, man, I really appreciate all your time and expertise and knowledge and camaraderie. So same to Aquavite. Hopefully he'll have a chance to, I don't think he ever sees any of these, but at least he'll know that I'm very appreciative of his channel as well. So much about, guys. See you for now.